Ladies and gentlemen, Shaky Gurga is here in the building. It's Cenksgiving time, baby. It's Cenksgiving time. Woo! Unk is here.
Okay,
What is that?
I got a Thanksgiving present for you. Okay?
You do? Okay. Oh my God.
How much do you love this?
I
know you're a big fan of Hunter Biden.
I know. This reminds me of one of the first.
I'll get you a new one.
This is no, it's fine. I like it. Did you guys make this? Is it your merch?
Yeah.
You made a free Hunter. It would have been better if he was smoking crack in it, but instead of cigs. But
come on, that's pretty good.
No, it's sick.
You know who came up with that idea?
Who?
I did.
I love that. Okay.
Free Hunter, baby. Okay, let's do a poly market here.
Okay. For poly market. But
no, seriously.
Wait. You want to know something about? You want to know something about those? First of all, they got raided by the FBI.
The CEO did.
Yeah, the CEO did. I don't know if you know this, but they offered me as a starting point of the conversation, $1 million to just sponsor my election coverage, and I said no.
Good for you. God bless your heart. I probably would have said yes. Anyway,
well,
okay. So
just like that's the entry point of the conversation. They were like, "We'll give you $1 million." I was like, "No, fuck no." Anyway,
okay. So, anyways, put that aside. Who do you think is gonna pardon Hunter? No one, Joe, or Donald?
I don't know. I feel like Joe could possibly do it, but he respects norms and civility too much almost in his like weird twisted way. But also his mental faculties have declined dramatically over the years, so maybe he could still pull through. I don't think Trump would do it though.
I think Trump would do it, but I think Joe's gonna do it because Papa Joe's in a no fucks given time in his life.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, landmines for everyone. Let's bomb Russia with American missiles. Yeah. So I think he's at the point where he's like, yeah, my kid. Yeah, I'm freeing him. Shut the fuck up.
Okay. So before we get started, you might be confused as to why we're calling you Shaky Gurga.
Yes.
And a lot of people in the past has, said your name incorrectly. It's been very frustrating for myself, but I'm sure it's been somewhat frustrating for you. Maybe you're used to it. But I had actually never heard this version of your name. And when we first heard it, we were like, this is it. This is the greatest thing I've ever heard. And now we refer to you as Shaky Gurga. Let's take a look.
It's possible that because he's such a low-tier, lowbrow debater.
He's not a debater, and he's been very clear that he doesn't. He's not a debate lord.
Because he's literally a
Wait, who are they talking about?
So this is, does anyone have the OG TikTok? I want to show Cenk. I want to show Uncle Cenk the OG TikTok. Does anyone have it? The TikTok got taken down. I can't find it. Okay, so this is the, I guess like one of those like misogynist podcasts where they just like will have someone, they'll have like some pervert guy who's like really good at debate like women that they hire to be on the podcast, to be ritualistically humiliated basically. And this is like their debate champion that they bring forward. And it was the girl that was on. Was apparently a fan of mine and was saying like, oh, Hasan is going to hate that I'm on this podcast because he hates you guys. The original TikTok, I think. Oh, is this it?
You appear to have a crush on Hasanabi. Is that correct?
Yes, if he ever watches this, I'm sorry.
Sorry for what?
For being on here, he hates it.
Why?
Okay.
He's a socialist and he knows the formula of the podcast. I'm not going to go into, you understand.
It's possible that because he's such a low-tier, lowbrow debater.
He's not a debater, and he's been very clear that he doesn't. He's not a debate lord.
Because he's literally a moron, so it doesn't surprise me he can't debate.
I completely disagree.
He's literally a moron. He is not intelligent enough to destroy women in the marketplace of ideas and remind them of their position in society. Unlike me. I love these guys.
He sounds super credible so far.
I fucking love these guys so much. They don't know how much I love them because it's like, dude, you're just basically debating the position that you're an unfuckable loser. Like that's the only thing that you're signaling to every single person where you're like, I've destroyed this female in the marketplace of ideas. My interlocutors have been owned. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
it's
sick.
not usually a winning formula for getting chicks.
Yeah, it's anyway.
Disagree. He doesn't say that he's the smartest person. He's an internet personality who
Guy
who
who's connected to
is
Shaky
a
Girl.
political commentator.
And got it.
Did you hear that?
Guy who's connected to Shaky Girl.
Look, man. So look, when I played high school football, we had this hilarious public access would carry the games, right?
Uh-huh.
And so we had these announcers, and the coach had put on pads, and he's kind of a young guy. Later was like involved in like a Supreme Court decision, etc. But he's like, all right, I'm going to participate in the practice, and anybody can hit me. He comes across the middle, and I fucking lay him out, right? And so coach hated me. I don't know if that's why he hated me or not. But the announcers in the game, I crunch somebody coming over the middle, and they tell the story about how I hit the coach, and they go, that's Cenk Weiger. He'll hit anybody.
Yeah, but we've heard that one before, like chunky yogurt. Charlie Kirk famously once called you a slur.
Did he? No, he just said Cenk.
Well, he said it with so much stink on it that it sounds exactly like when you say a chink in someone's armor. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see. That's
Like-
funny. He said Cenk. I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
I don't know if he intended it or not. I doubt he intended it.
Yeah.
But anyways,
He didn't. Yeah, I don't think he was trying to say.
no, I don't think he was trying to say that.
Yeah.
You think Charlie Kirk knows the Turks are originally Central Asian? And
No.
hence
No.
So,
But Cenk is a good
Cenk's
one.
normal.
Cenk is a great one.
Joe Manchin called me Jenks throughout the interview. Hey, Jenks.
That's awesome.
So it is in fact
Here,
Cenk.
famously.
I live like a capitalist every single day, Cenk. I live like a capitalist every single day, Cenk.
Have you never seen this?
I live like a capitalist every single day, Cenk. I live like a capitalist every single day, Cenk.
Every time.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
before.
every time he gets more racist, his face gets smaller. And
I live like a capitalist every single day. I live like a capitalist every single day, Cenk. I live like a capitalist every single day, Cenk. I live like a capitalist every single day, Cenk.
I live like a capitalist every single day, Cenk. I live like a capitalist every single day,
his
Cenk.
face was
Yeah,
normal.
that's the right face.
Yeah, that like
That's
if his
a normal
face,
face.
seemingly if his face was like 110%, like if his face was 10% larger, like he would
I
be
live like a capitalist every
like
single day,
literally
Cenk.
like 7 to 10% larger. He has a normal face.
I live like
but-
I live like a capitalist every single day, Cenk.
What?
I
Okay,
live like a
chill.
capitalist every single day, Cenk.
This is what he normally looks like.
Okay, so on the other hand, if we're talking about head to body ratio, well then we're
Don't even fucking yo, that's out of line. That is out of line, dude. You're coming in.
start out ad hominem.
You came in hot. You came in. Thank you, Mom. Mom is defending me. She said that's a low blow. That's crazy that you came in and you hit me where it hurts the most, my tiny head. Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, I wish I had tiny body parts.
I'm sorry that I am, brolic as fuck, and I have a normal head, but my shoulders are so ginormous that it makes my head look small in comparison, even though it's a normal size head.
Look, I'm
Anyway.
the last person to body shame. Okay,
Okay,
so
yeah.
let's just be clear about that.
So that's something that I wanted to. Yeah, I'm a delicacy in Korea. Okay, remember that shaky Gurga.
Political commentator.
And got his job because he had contacts.
Do you watch
for
political
Cenk.
commentate?
Yes,
Commentate?
I'm a political commentator.
Okay.
Who is this guy? He is a political commentator. I've never heard of
I've
this
never seen
person. We don't know you, little bro. Anyway,
Oh, what's his name? Oh, actually, you know what? It's even better. His name is Zero.
yeah,
Nothing.
his name is nothing. This dude was on Twitch a long time ago. Okay, nice. Who cares? All right, fuck that guy. So this was a fun moment as well. You had this. We'll show your highlight reel here. Shaky Gurga gets into a fight with Alan Lichtman. The people love this shit. Okay, I love this shit as well. I've made fun of Alan Lichtman before, like before the election, where I was like, because a lot of liberals would come into my chat and be like, but the 13 keys, like he knows how to turn him. I'm like, he made it up. Like you can't, like there is no hard science here. He made up certain, like he tried to make like a scientific equation for why he was going to be consistently, he's going to be consistently successful at predicting the outcome of elections. And it is ridiculous to look at that. It's like no different than, those famous like octopus that always choose the right,
he's totally
right
the
candidate ahead of
octopus.
time. Yeah. It's like moodang.
It's like the cat that falls. If he falls on his left side going down the stairs, then the Republican wins, and falls on his right side. It's nonsense. It's been nonsense from day one.
Anyway, but yeah, here.
Sorry, but I totally disagree with Juan and Professor Lichtman. Don't blame the voters. I think, look, we could get into this discussion, but Juan, I think you're blaming the voters. I think that's a terrible idea. And look, I debated Professor Lichtman before. I told him his theories about the keys were absurd. I was right. He was wrong. I said he'd lose his keys.
No, you were
couldn't
not
find
right,
him
and
before
I
the
was
election.
not wrong, and that's a cheap shot, and I won't stand for it.
Well, who won, brother?
You know what's a cheap shot? Why do you have Justin Bieber hair? That's a real cheap shot. Get a
But
different.
seriously, that's important because at that point, I actually did not do any cheap shot. I just reiterated what he had said in the beginning, that he was wrong,
Yeah.
right? So he admitted he was wrong, and I said, look, you were wrong, and I was right. That's all. That's not a cheap shot. Later, there are cheap shots because he started interrupting me, which is a very bad idea.
Yeah, he should have. I mean, you should have cheapened the shots, is what I'm saying. You could have hit him on the hair thing. Like, I just don't understand why he has that haircut. I just, anyway.
You should not be
Who
taking
won?
cheap
Who
shots
won?
at me.
Who
You
won?
gotta make your
You
point.
live
Make your
in a
point.
total
Don't make
world
it
of
personal.
denial.
I read your own follow.
I love that. Dude, you're such a fucking boomer. That's such like, I mean, it's amazing. It's great. You're authentically yourself. But when you went, woo,
Total authentic boomer. That's how Shaky Gerger shakes.
oh, that's so good.
Followers' comments, and they all trashed you, every one of them, and supported me.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so let me tell you what happened there. So I debate him on Young Turks. What happens is all of the key stands show up, and so they're
The key heads, yeah.
the key heads are like, oh my God, he's so right. You don't even know that 7 keys is higher than 6 keys. And this has been so true of all people that I really, really want to win, right? So like they're total zombies. And they go into the YouTube section. Look at any of our YouTube videos. It is at least 50% trolls, right? Of whoever, Israeli trolls, right-wing trolls, left-wing trolls, whatever. And this brother thinks, maybe that's the 14th key.
Yeah, he's just
Brother, no, you were just selling them Kool-Aid.
he's on copium. He's looking for. It's just funny because this is after the election, where he is like, before the election, everyone that wanted Kamala Harris to win desperately was like propping him up as this like prophetic figure. And I always thought that was ridiculous. And, I think they even did a video on me early on as well, because I think his son might have been a fan of mine or something. And they were like very upset with my interpretation or my bastardization of his 13 keys analysis. Right. And but after the election, like, you should at least hang your head in shame. You know what I mean? You should have a little bit of decency to be like, yeah, fucked up. Let's reinterpret this stuff. Let's figure out what's going on.
Yeah, but look, the corporate wing
What are
is
you
never going to
defending my dad's honor against Hassan Piker?
The corporate wing's never going to admit defeat.
He
They're
sounded
always
like an
gonna-
emotional and disrespectful teenager. God, Hassan is so smug and arrogant. The fact that he's one of the biggest political commentators, streamers out there with no knowledge or credibility on any political subject.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's what they always say. They're like,
Yeah.
well, if you were credible and you knew enough, you would know that corporations should donate to politicians and then completely own them, and those politicians should do dick for you. And that's like the really credible intellectual position. Is it, brother?
He's mad that your dad put his uncle in his place. That's what this guy said.
Like you would give a shit.
I didn't even know.
You didn't even know we were debating.
I didn't even know
right?
you guys were duking it out.
Like I'm picturing a moment where you're like, I can't believe he did that to my uncle.
Yeah, first of all, I
would
do
never
defend you.
happen.
I do defend you. Okay. I do defend you when it's valid. And if I knew that he had come after you, I would have defended you. I don't defend you when it's not valid.
Yeah, I hear you. But the idea of you defending my honor is hilarious. But okay, keep going. You don't have to defend my honor.
Intelligence versus chaos and hate. Love you and your dad. Anyway, don't go after this person. Like, they're probably suffering already. But yeah, it seems as early as August, I was shitting on them when I first encountered the thing. But anyway, it gets better.
Personal
Yeah,
attacks.
come find out again.
Make whatever point you want.
Yeah.
Don't
Look,
make
you
it personal.
don't know anything. You don't know
You
anything.
attacked me
You're
personally.
so deluded.
All right. I've only
Okay.
been a
Can I
professor
just-
for 51 years.
On this program,
published
I've never been
13
able
books.
to finish a
How
thought.
many books have you published? No, because you're personally
Yeah.
attacking me again. Say whatever you want, but I'm not going to
Okay,
stand
but
for
brother,
personal
you got it
attacks.
wrong.
Say
you were
whatever you want.
preposterously and stupidly wrong. So, okay, all right. Can I just
Don't
finish
call
a
me
goddamn thought
stupid.
ever on this show?
No, not if you're
Okay,
personally
well,
I
you proved
admitted
it.
I was wrong. I don't need you to call me stupid.
Okay.
Can I just say,
What
it's
kind of
great to see
nonsense
you
is that?
Democrats
Yeah, I
all
know.
getting
Who
along
taught
so
you
well.
manners?
God, I just Piers, man. He just. Anyway, I'm not gonna get into it. I know he's your best bud. He's your
It's
pal.
lovely to
You
see
need
a
to understand-
post-election
finish a
harmony as you all
goddamn
come
point.
together
We're
again.
just one
Alan,
right now.
shh. Hey, Alan, you deserve a tall glass of shut-up juice, so can you just shut up?
Cook him! Cook him! Unk! Cook him! Cook his ass! Dude, I love your commentary is excellent. You said tall glass of shut up juice. You are the brownest white man on the planet, by the way.
Well,
like what you are
Others
like
have charged that.
yeah, it's just so funny that you deserve a tall glass of shut up juice is the most like, listen, pal, not the time bucko ass take that you could have here.
You know why? Because I'm an American.
Yeah, you just deployed that shit, dude. You deployed it so hard.
For a second.
And it worked. You shut the fuck up.
Well, that's what the tall glass of shut up juice is for.
Yeah.
And let someone who knows what
Not
they're doing.
if you're
So
gonna
right,
personally
Piers.
attack
You're
me.
so right.
So-
We're so
Make any
unified right now.
point you
Okay.
want.
So-
I will not sit here and stand
So-
for personal attacks, for blasphemy against me. You don't need to do that. You don't boost your
Blasphemy
ego
against you?
by
Who the hell are
attacking
you?
me
Are
like
you
Blasphemy. What a fucking insane thing to say about your like demonstrably failed political method. Like you try to interpret the election in a way that like very clearly was wrong, and now you're saying you're a blasphemer. That's amazing.
Jesus
Just
Christ,
make your
you
points.
loser? Okay, can
Even
I?
Harry liked it. Harry loved it, dude. Fucking Harry Sasson.
Can
points.
I just give the correct answer for once? Okay, here we go. So, guys, you're blaming disinformation. There was disinformation. There was the cats and the dogs nonsense. The points you're making about undocumented immigrants, I agree with, Alan, okay? But that didn't cost the election. The main disinformation was about how the election was going to be rigged. And it wasn't rigged. It was dumb. They won easily. There was no need for that disinformation.
Excuse me. It was too big to rig. That's why.
Oh,
Too
yeah.
big to rig. That's what we did, baby. That's right. Trump 2024, Trump 2025.
You guys are missing the whole point. The people who are at fault are not other people. It is the candidate, Kamala Harris, the previous candidate, Joe Biden, Democratic Party, Democratic leadership. You guys don't want to admit that they're the problem. They're the cancer in the Democratic Party. So you blindly lash out at the voters, at information, at social media, and you want to shut down anyone who disagrees with you.
Where's the key when you jiggle the keys?
That's later. You know, that actually didn't make the viral clip, which is really funny because
Yeah.
I thought that might do it. Because in the
Elections
middle, as he was talking,
have
do you have it?
Oh, yeah. Here it is. Yeah. They pulled it out. Real.
previously worked as pragmatic decision making on whether or not the White House party has governed well enough. And then my analysis is based upon what's changed, what's shattered the pattern of 160 years of history. So I have a base for
They
my
fucking full pan to you? God, Piers is such a piece of shit. Oh my God.
He knows what's good TV.
Oh my God. He is such a dickhead, dude.
analysis. I'm not just doing Monday morning quarterbacking. Cenk, you need to learn some manners.
I brought him back. Jingle jangle. Jingle jangle.
Damn, she got
So-
1.2 million views, dude. Goddamn.
Your act is getting really
I
thin.
mean, brother, I said what was going to go wrong. It did go wrong. I was right. You were wrong in this election spectacularly so with your so-called keys. And now you come and tell us not the Monday
And
morning
unlike you, I'm
quarterback?
willing to admit when I'm wrong.
Are you ever going to learn?
Unlike you.
Why I actually do that all the time. Anyway, look, they're gonna bring this. So first of all, for now, leave poor Alan Lichtman alone, right?
Yeah.
He's just a civilian, whatever. Who cares? Like, I don't know if it's true that people are swatting or doxing him. That's crazy. Why would you bother with a professor who got it wrong?
Yeah.
That's like totally irrelevant. Now, but they're gonna bring him back in 2028. And more accurately, they're gonna bring him back in 2027 during the primaries.
Yeah.
They're gonna primaries. If we have a progressive populist and they have like their corporate douchebag.
No, they're
gonna
gonna
be like, oh, the keys.
No, they're gonna bring him back to talk about how Pete Buttigieg, Josh Shapiro, and gruesome Governor Gavin Newsom are the 3 top contenders. Maybe throw Kamala in there for a spicy people. I think her political career is done.
Oh, can I tell you why they're doing that? So people are now talking about, oh, Kamala Harris might run again, like 41% of Democrats or something. I didn't see the poll, but saying that they might vote for her. Number one, they're saying that because she's famous and she just ran. So that's not a reliable number. But the interesting part is they always say that somebody might run. Like for a while, they put out a rumor after Hillary Clinton lost that Chelsea Clinton might run. They do it themselves. Why? It's to increase their market value. Because listen,
Clinton.
I know. Because if Kamala Harris says she's not going to run again, well, then her book is less interesting. She gets less for her speeches because she's not going to be. Right now, though, if she says I might run again, she might be the future president of the United States. Even if it's a 10% chance, 20% chance, the Goldman Sachs and Raytheon, et cetera, are all going to pay her for huge speeches. The book is going to sell more, et cetera. You're more marketable if you say you might run again. That's why they literally do it as a business tactic. So she's not going to run again. I got a bold prediction for you guys. Head of USC, president, dean, whatever of USC at some point, because she doesn't want any piece of this. She's so nervous.
She's not very good at this.
She's not good at it. She doesn't want to do it.
As we found out in 2019, and once again, this time around as well.
Yeah, she's got no business running. She didn't want to run. She sucks at it. All she has is talking points. That's why I said do a real primary. But of course, all the Democratic leadership yelled, no real primaries. We anoint.
In the interest of fairness, this is where I also was, well, I'll explain my position, but I also said that I think the open primary process would spell chaos and disorder for the Democratic Party, especially so close to the actual election. And I thought because she was a blank slate, that there was an opportunity there to fill that blank slate with actually somewhat good policies. Even if she's not charismatic herself, she could have still, especially after she got locked in with Tim Walz, I was like, oh, this is great. She's going to be forced to like have to defend some of these positions and inevitably maybe even move away from the tack to the right attitude that the Democrats usually have. Of course, I kept warning over and over again, if she does that, she's going to lose. And she did do that, and she lost. So
but look, here's the thing.
But yes, an open primary, I think, would have put forth possibly. I mean, would have put forth a stronger candidate regardless. Yeah. But we also don't know like how chaotic that process would have looked like as well.
Who cares? So let's just break it down one by one. You agree that Biden should have withdrawn a year and a half ago?
I agree that Biden should have picked a better VP candidate that he knew was going to be the transitional.
Can we also like give the right wing a tiny bit of credit here? I mean, they go too far when they say she's just a DEI hire. She was the Attorney General of California. She was a senator from California.
She had the
she
bona
picked because
fides.
she was a black woman? Of course she was picked because she was a black woman.
I mean, Biden said that was the real reason why she not only picked. I'll take it one step further. It's not even Kamala Harris that frustrates me about that. It's the fact that Biden said that about Ketanji Brown Jackson, who literally is more deserving of a Supreme Court appointment than most of the other Supreme Court justices. And he still fucked the bag up by turning around and being like, oh, yeah, I'm picking a black woman, Jack. And it was fucking nutty because, like, that's the first time we've had a public defender sit on the top court. Like, that was not a DEI hire in the way that conservatives mention it.
So do you know that I'm against affirmative action? I've always been against affirmative action. And
wait, really?
Yeah. And the reason
I did not know that.
Yeah. The reason is because Ketanji Brown Jackson is an excellent Supreme Court justice who's perfectly qualified. So is Sonia Sotomayor. But the minute that any minority, by the way, including us, gets any position of power, respect, etc., what does everybody do? I just got it because they're black. They just got it because they're this.
No, I
they
think
just
I
got
think
it
that's
because of that.
I think that's
and you think that's just a right wing thing, but it isn't. It
no,
gets
no,
into
no, no.
everyone's head.
No, I understand where you're coming from, but I respectfully disagree. I think that is like ultimately caving in and capitulating to right wing framing on the issue. The affirmative action conversation has always been a band-aid solution to like significantly more consequential racial dynamics in this country that have never been addressed at all. And I've always looked at things from a class position regardless. And like the real affirmative action is legacy admissions.
100%.
Like,
we even have a petition on tyt.com to end legacy petitions, because if you're against affirmative action, you have to be against affirmative action for super rich dudes whose dad went to Princeton or gave Princeton $1 million. Okay.
Yeah. George W. Bush going to Yale, you know?
Yeah, that's
He didn't
totally
fucking deserve
bullshit.
to go to
And by
Yale.
the way, you know who else was an affirmative action pick? Joe Biden. Because Obama picked him because he was an old white guy. He's like,
old
I don't
racist,
really care.
old racist white guy who
By
has
the
like
way,
gas.
you know that with absolute certainty, because in his final list, he had a big list in the beginning, but in the final list, it was only old white men, because they knew they had to balance the ticket because he was a young African American. So let's not pretend that they didn't pick on demographic information.
No, but
Obama did, and so did Biden.
Yeah, but also it doesn't work in that direction regardless, because like obviously the underlying sentiment is that like affirmative action is not the reason why people think black people are undeserving of their position in society. They already thought that, and now they're using affirmative action to continue to compound on that argumentation.
But it does compound, and I hate that it compounds because it's not true.
I'm more like the process itself in terms of like affirmative action in general, albeit is still, like I said, not a good solution to systemic racism and inequality that persists, and black people being consistently underserved in American society even now. Even when I recognize that, it's still not like anything that moves the needle in an appropriate direction is fine. Like I don't have an issue with it, especially if it's like, for example, making colleges more diverse in general. That's a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing at all, because I do agree with college administrators when they say that America is a diverse country and that we want our student body population to be more representative of the country as a whole. Yeah. And I think that actually makes it a more like, these are some of my most like rad lib takes, I would say, but I do think that actually makes it a better learning environment in general. When you're a kid from the countryside that has never really encountered black people other than like seeing black people and black culture on television, when you actually go to college and you're in a dorm and your dorm mate is a black person, for the first time you're actually encountering and developing interpersonal relationships with people that you otherwise never would have. So, I think that makes for a better learning environment.
So two things about that. Look, as you were talking, I came up with an analogy here. Let's see how it goes. I view affirmative action as kind of a counterproductive Band-Aid on a wound. So the right wing says the wound doesn't exist. No, I think the wound does exist. I just don't think that the Band-Aid is the right solution, right? Because what the Band-Aid is doing is it's covering up the wound and not letting it breathe and not letting it heal.
You're a bit of an accelerationist.
Okay, so
in that regard,
well, it's a very different accelerationist.
No,
but I'm not trying to accelerate racism. I'm trying to end racism.
That's what pure Marxist Leninists say about the welfare state.
Okay,
it's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid continuation of like of.
Yeah, but they're wrong. That's a completely different topic.
Okay, I'm just saying.
So, I got you. So, but in this case, so constantly reaffirming and reaffirming, we should think about race. We should think about race. We should characterize everyone on race. That doesn't help defeat racism. It perpetuates racism. So I think it's a terrible idea. I hate that we view ourselves separately based on different categories: race, gender, sexual orientation, etc. It doesn't mean that there aren't things that are going wrong now. It doesn't mean that there isn't systemic racism. It means that there's a better way to address it. And then in terms of the diversity, look, I would do not affirmative action, but whatever is the appropriate way to put a thumb on a scale, but for acceptance into schools based on class, not on race. And it's not because of class dynamics and I don't want the rich to go to good schools, etc. No, I'm saying that if you came from a poor background, I don't give a goddamn if it's from the hollers of West Virginia or your black kid in the Bronx. If you rose up and got great scores and great grades in a situation like that, you are more likely to be successful. It's not just that it gives you diversity. What it gives you
Confucianism pilled.
Okay, I'm what pilled?
Confucianism pilled.
Okay, whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah, no,
okay.
you wanna. Yeah, this is once again, Jenkins Dengus rise up. You know, you want a Chinese style
meritocracy,
pure meritocracy, pure meritocratic approach. Now, the problem with that is that when you have underserved communities consistently, you got to put your thumb on the scale in a certain place because we don't have true equality of opportunity in this country, and obviously, people like yourself and myself, that's what we're advocating for. Republicans will turn around and bastardize that critique it by saying, you want equality of outcome. We don't want equality of outcome.
No, I
we
definitely
want
don't
true
want that.
equality of opportunity. And when there's no true equality of opportunity, when black communities are consistently underserved, when you look at the Chicago public school system that is 90% of the state of Illinois' like black and brown student body population
takes care of that.
being consistently underserved, you are getting to a point where people are not being propped up. People are not being propped up to succeed in this process. So I think like you're right. Analyzing it from the class position is good because even though there's a racial dynamic and the racial disparity that exists in the American normal order of business, the violence or the inequalities, the structural inequalities, are still dished out on a class-based perspective.
Yeah, I mean, the hollers in Kentucky don't have great public schools either. So they also had to overcome a lot, right? So like saying that a black guy at Exeter should get an advantage, but a white kid in the middle of Missouri who's going to a shit public school too should not get an advantage, that makes no sense at all.
I don't think that that's what people are advocating for, though. I mean, I don't know.
They're
I'm not
literally advocating for that. 100%.
I'm not advocating for that. I don't know
So
what
that's
you
why
mean. I don't think people who are. I don't think that like black activist groups are saying like, no, fuck the poor white people. Like, I don't.
No, but they're saying give an advantage based on race, not class. And I'm saying I 100% disagree with that.
Okay. Well, again, Band-Aid solution,
Okay,
regardless.
so back to Biden and Harris. So we both agree Biden should have gotten the fuck out of the race. Crazy.
Can
right?
I just say one other thing, actually? Historically, the wrong that has been committed is on the basis of race. So I think the solution to that problem, albeit, should feature a class dynamic, absolutely will have some racialized component attached to it, because you can't right a historic wrong by simply being like, yeah, we're just going to.
So look, this is really important. So let's talk about balance, because in the beginning, when let's take longshoremen or firefighters, they're all white let's say in the South, right, where you've got massive Jim Crow laws. If you deny that and you think, oh no, black people got perfect opportunity in 1940s and 20s and 60s in the South, you're just in a different planet. So there's no point in talking to you, right? So they're at a massive, massive disadvantage, to say the least. They can't get in. And the longshoremen, I get it. Their instinct is, I want to give my job to my son. It's a good job. It pays well, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to pass it on to my son. Now, at some point, you have to use affirmative action in the beginning to break through that. Because if you allow that to happen, black people are never going to be able to break through, right? So you've got to, in the beginning, say, look, we're taking action based on race because the discrimination was based on race. But if you do that forever, then you never break the racial paradigm, right? We're always thinking about race and we're always separating based on race. So it can't be forever. It can't be never. So then the question becomes, when do you end affirmative action? And we started in the 1960s. Here we are in 2024. If it hasn't worked by now, I got news for you. It ain't never going to work.
Yeah,
so
but
it's
that's
a wrong
also
solution to a real problem.
But that's also because, like, it hasn't even. No, Cenk is not saying racism is over. Pack it up, guys. No, he's not saying
I literally
that.
said that's not the case. The wound still exists. The wound is real.
Yeah.
And I literally said systemic
I
racism
think
is real.
Maybe you might not like this, but I do think that reparations is part of the solution to this, albeit it's politically impossible to get through in a country that is so resilient in their interpretation of
Yeah.
How much they've internalized white supremacy.
But again, reparations is a super interesting, nuanced conversation. So on the one hand, you know, and I'll give credit to Marianne Williamson here. I thought she phrased it best back in 2020 when she said a debt is owed. And that is actually very literally true.
Yeah.
So we used the country at large and the country I love. And yes, we came to it much, much later. But that country took advantage of all of that free labor to build what we love and what we now take advantage of and what we came here for, right? So hundreds of years of free labor, no matter what your race is or what your condition is unacceptable. They never got paid for that. It's a massive robbery from African Americans in this country. So I not only acknowledge that, but I'm enraged by it. But now, what are we going to do? If you propose a reparations that's so extreme as San Francisco did, where they're like, oh, any black person can buy a house in San Francisco for $1. What the fuck?
Okay. What do you? I don't even know what you're talking. Hold on. What are you talking about?
Had this insane thing where they're like, okay, now every white and non-black, including Latinos, including Middle Eastern, Asians, etc., have to give money to black people in this city or in this town where they passed it.
Wait, hold on. Let's just take a look at it first. Let's analyze it a little bit because this seems a little kooky.
You're going to see how insane it is.
This seems a little bit kooky. So proposals include financing debt forgiveness, guaranteed annual incomes for families and homes in the city for $1. San Francisco backs reparation plans, including $5 million to eligible black adults. More than 100 recommendations included payments of $5 million to every eligible black adult, the elimination of personal debt and tax burdens, guaranteed annual incomes of at least $97,000 for 250 years, and homes in San Francisco for just $1 a family. San Francisco lawmakers heard
that's real. That's the Guardian.
They heard I know. They heard a range of options. Sometimes people have ideas. They present those ideas in a situation like this, in like a public town hall setting, and regardless of
enthusiastic support by the council.
Okay, so but here's the thing. This is some of the 100 different recommendations that came through, and it doesn't seem like they followed through on this or any number of these different reparations plans. It's like people have a multitude
enthusiastically received.
I think saying that is very different than following through on it as a part of your legislative agenda.
So my point was there are extreme proposals on reparations that make no sense. Okay. And you're agreeing it makes no sense.
Okay.
Right? That's a ludicrous position.
Yeah,
right?
but
so
this is...
Hold on. Is there a way to do reparations in a way that does make sense? And I think the answer is yes. I don't think it's giving black people a house for $1. I don't think it's giving them money, etc. But the new school has proposed some interesting ideas, including, hey, what if we provided tax breaks that would be material in buying housing for African Americans? So, well, okay, that's interesting because now, or you've created a fund that allows them to turn it into an education fund for their children, right?
This person also has a good point. We should have a ceasefire in Gaza has also been enthusiastically received by the Biden admin. Didn't mean they did a damn thing because politicians
but we're not arguing, guys. If you think it's absurd, great, fantastic. We all agree it's absurd.
I don't think that there are I'm sure that there are some people who think this is a fantastic idea and they could get into an academic conversation about it. It's just more so a matter of like the framing of this to make it seem as though like the
No, I'm setting the outer extremes, Haas.
Yeah, but like...
Okay, so I'm saying, when you say reparations, a lot of people are going to say, hell no. A lot of people are going to say, hell yes. But my point is, but what are we saying yes or no to? So if you take the most extreme example, I say no, and everybody says no. But it's not I'm agreeing with you. That's not the only proposal. I'm just telling you, New School has proposals that are really interesting about, hey, what if it was directed towards education or housing? We promised 40 acres and a mule, and we lied. We never gave them the 40 acres and a mule.
Yeah, only reparations were given to slave owners, as a matter of fact, for lost revenue off of the freed African men and women.
Yeah. So you see what I'm saying? That you could do it in a way that where middle America goes, oh, I get it. That sucks. That was an injustice. And we're trying a small thing here to make up for the injustice so that it at a minimum, symbolically, to say, thank you, brothers and sisters, for putting up with this shit. Like, I know you didn't do it voluntarily, but you helped build this country and we appreciate you. So get on a page where we understand each other and appreciate each other instead of framing it as I'm taking from you. You owe me and I'm taking from you, right? So that perpetuates a wrong cycle. Whereas but in order to do that, Haas, last thing on it is you've got to have like truth and reconciliation, just like South Africa did. Here's all the fucked up shit we did.
South Africa's, South Africa's reconstruction period also was not a great
But truth and
success either.
reconciliation was excellent. So that portion of it was great because they said, here's all the terrible things we did. Guys, it doesn't mean that white people today are racist. It doesn't mean white people today are awful. It doesn't mean all white people are the same. It doesn't mean any of that. What it means is in the past, there were terrible things that were done. And here's us trying to make up for it in some small way that the country agrees to and we're all on board for. And sincere apology and a sincere thank you. And now, from now on, let's move forward. Let's move forward and cut all the talk of like race this and race that and gender this and gender that from both sides, by the way. The right wing starts more identity politics than the left wing does. So now the right wing guys, their heads will explode. What do you mean? You guys try to find wedge issues on every fucking thing. And then you go more and more in extreme. And I think you guys, Haas, fall into that trap way too often. We'll get to that later.
Wait, let's get to it now.
Okay.
What do you mean by that?
So you know what we're going to talk about, the trans issues. So on trans issues, as an example, over 60% of Americans agree. Of course, they should have the same constitutional rights, same rights to housing, employment, rules against discrimination, etc. Does 1/3 of the country disagree? Yeah, sad day for them. 2/3 of the country agrees trans people should be protected. I'm 100% on board for that, right? And if you're a right winger and you go, no, man, they're weird, they're different, they're blah, 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 and I'm going to hate them. Well, good luck to you, brother. I'm not going to hate them, and I'm going to protect them, okay? But so that didn't work for them. So they went digging. So then they go, okay, we should ban trans people from the military.
Did you read the New York Times article I told you to read on this the last time we had this conversation?
I'm not sure I did.
About how, okay, so...
they went digging.
Yeah. So what you're describing is what I was explaining to you, that the Christian groups, the right-wing Christian nationalist groups, in the aftermath of the failed initiative to do a trans bathroom bill in North Carolina at a time when Donald Trump was pro-trans, openly stating he was pro-trans, openly criticizing the North Carolina legislation, saying leave it as it is, nobody cares. Caitlyn Jenner can piss in whichever bathroom she wants to piss in as long as she's pissing in Trump Tower. When all this stuff was happening, there was definitely a different attitude overall. I think part of that was because, just like you also recognize, most Americans, like, they just think trans people are being discriminated against and unjustly. And the other reason was because it just seemed like cruel and unusual for no particular reason. So what these Christian family groups did was go back to the drawing board and, hire the likes of, maybe Frank Luntz didn't personally involve himself in this one, but like people like Frank Luntz that would go and focus group and test different messages.
Yep.
And they arrived at two key points that were resilient. Americans don't necessarily care about trans issues all that much, but they do care about meritocracy. And what is the one place where there's true meritocracy in the eyes of many Americans? Now, there's, still not perfect meritocracy, but sports. Sports is the one area where if you dominate, if you're good, you're going to dominate. If you're dominant, then you're going to get elevated, right? So they packaged anti-trans sentiment with sports, and specifically children's sports, right? And that is where we arrive at, 60% of the country, or even larger percentages than that, don't think trans women should be participating in sports with cis women, specifically trans girls, competing in athletic endeavors with cis girls.
Yeah. So that's exactly my point, Haas. And when they laid that trap, first of all, the right wing should acknowledge that was identity politics being played by the right wing. The right wing did the polls. They did the studies. They were looking for something that the American people would hate about the left, about trans people, about LGBTQ people. When you go looking and searching and digging on identity, don't tell me you're not doing identity politics.
No, this
That's
is
exactly what
this
you're
is
doing.
identity politics, and the right does it all the time. Now, listen, here's the thing, okay? You understand this to be a distraction, like you recognize that it's a distraction, which is why I don't think either of us are saying that this should be the pivotal. This should play a pivotal role in the top of the line messaging of the Democratic Party, which is that like no. Trans women have to compete with cis women. I don't think anyone is making that argument at all.
No.
But I think we should, it would serve us both well to openly recognize, and I think you do as well, that this hyper focusing on, trans athletes at the high school level all the way to the collegiate level is a distraction that most Americans might have an opinion on, but don't necessarily care about. It's not a major driver of turnout. It's not something that people go out and vote for.
I don't agree.
No. Okay. Well, we can have that argument in a second. I will explain it to you why I don't think it's a real issue. Part of the reason why is that it's just simply not a real issue because do you know the number of trans athletes nationally?
So I know that
under the collegiate level.
No, it's microscopic.
It's
That's
40.
why.
The number is 40.
Yeah, and so like 20 states, 20 red states passed a law against transgender girls participating in high school sports, and they couldn't name one transgender girl in their state that participated in high school sports.
Yes.
So that's exactly my point. We start with agreement.
Even Spencer Cox vetoed the bill in Utah originally, and he actually wrote like a pretty compelling argument as to why he was vetoing it. And governors like Andy Bashar have actually won by higher margins after openly defending trans people in the past in a state like Kentucky, for example.
So look, we start with a point of agreement, which is that the right wing uses a wedge issue to drive a wedge between us.
Mm-hmm.
They go looking for it, and they do it based on identity politics.
Okay.
So we totally agree on that. We totally agree that it's a microscopic issue that affects almost no one in the country. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when we don't have paid
Also, I don't
family,
even think
we don't
that's
have
true.
health care for everyone. This is bullshit.
I don't even think
This is
that's
meant
true.
to distract us.
I don't
we
even think
disagree
it does
on how
impact
to
people.
react to it.
It does actually impact a lot of cis women. There's more cis women than there are trans women, and there are a lot of young girls that this could technically impact because now you have bills like the one in Ohio, the penis inspection bills, like the one that they have in Ohio, where like one of the parents from the opposing team could be like, "That's a trans girl, actually," and then they have to literally go and traumatize this like young girl who in many instances is not. Statistically, it is highly unlikely that person is trans to begin with.
So
And,
look,
and
again,
it ends
but
up
Haas,
harming. It ends up harming cis women even more than it ends up harming trans women.
So look. I said this exact same point on trigonometry, and their audience hated it. But this is the reality. The reason I make a distinction between high school and professional sports is because in high school, what you're saying is, like Ohio, if I really want to institute this, even though it affects almost no trans or cis girls, if in the world in Ohio as it is,
Like
but if I go to implement it, now I got to check everybody's genitals, and there's got to be a genital checker, right? And let me guess, tons of Republican older men are going to volunteer to check the genitals of our high school kids, and I hate it. I don't want it. It's like a groomer pervert factory. And they're going to probably put Jim Jordan in charge of it. Fuck no. Okay. But when you get to the professional level, you get to the Olympic level, you guys make a giant mistake. You fall right into their trap and you go, oh yeah, sure. They should be able to compete. When the overwhelming majority of the American people do not agree with you, you should let the Olympics and the professional sports decide it on their own. It is not a constitutional right. They have no so-called right to participate in the WNBA. I don't have a right to participate in the NBA. So number one, I don't agree when you go to those extremes. And number two, does it affect elections? Well, we had an overwhelming answer to that in the Trump-Harris contest, because Donald Trump ran the anti-trans ad, which was not about hating trans people, although of course it was perceived as such by a lot of people. And so, what it was saying, hey, you guys are giving free surgery to undocumented immigrants who are detainees who are trans. It's too much. It's too, and I agree, it is too much. 98% of Americans agree it is too much, right? So instead of saying, oh no, that you guys are right, that's too much, We did, and of course, sports leagues, that's fine. And of course, no, we're not going to pay for any surgery for a dude who just crossed the border a second ago, right? Instead, you guys go, no, let's fight. Oh, for God's sake. And you dig in, and now we're on a losing ground for no reason at all.
Can you tell me who on the Democratic Party's campaign was actually saying, like, no, we have to issue bottom surgery for undocumented migrants, outside of Kamala Harris saying that in an ACLU questionnaire in 2019 when faced with the question, what will you do for trans people? She just gave that answer, which was a bad answer to give regardless. But was there like a hyper focus from the Democratic Party's campaign that I'm missing?
So Trump starts running the ad, and it instantly jumps to the most effective ad according to Trump's internal numbers and according to Kamala Harris's internal numbers. So at that point,
that's also not true. David Plouffe literally said on the Pod Save America autopsy that they engaged in that the ad actually wasn't all that impactful at all.
Yeah, bullshit.
Oh, you
I
don't
saw
believe
him
it?
say that. I know it's not true because Future Forward, the biggest PAC that Kamala Harris said that the Charlemagne the God version of that moved the national polls by not the national polls, but for people who viewed it, it moved the numbers by 2.7 points nationally.
Okay.
That is gigantic. And they said it was the most effective ad Trump had. That's why he then doubled down and quadrupled down and wound up spending 20% of his entire ad budget on that ad.
I think
because both sides thought it was the single most effective ad.
I think that's literally the reason why Kamala Harris was able to actually catch up to Donald Trump on not only the economy because of their hyper focus on the trans shit. But
you thought that helped Kamala Harris?
No, I don't. I think that this kind of hyper focus on a marginalized group is not moving people to go out and vote in any meaningful capacity for some of the reasons that you also mentioned, but also because most people don't know who the fuck trans people are. They've never met a trans person. They don't give a shit. They just care about the economy. And when you're hyper focusing on just like, trans people and like dominating trans people or some shit, even if it's something that they agree with, they're like, after a certain point, there is outrage fatigue. And I think on the trans issue, we like consultants and people who are hyper focused on the media care far more about the effectiveness of ads like that than the actual Americans that went out and voted. And you saw
Except
this reality.
We lost, they won.
No, I know, but okay. So
I mean, like, it's so in the real world, they won, we lost. In the
that's why
in
you
the
have to
world
look at,
of
that's why you have
consultants
to,
where they look at polling.
That's why you have
they
to
won,
look.
we lost.
That's why you have to look at the broader campaign and what Americans were concerned with and why they voted in the ways that they did. And I think here's where you and I agree on.
So your position is, even though both sides overwhelmingly say that ad was the most effective ad and it moved people and it cost Kamala Harris tons and tons of votes, you disagree.
Yes. And the reason why I disagree with it is because, well, I don't completely disagree with it. And I'll explain to you why. And I think you and I are going to be in agreement with this. I think that the only way that ad is even remotely sticky when, or even remotely effective, when I still question the legitimacy of how effective the ad was, because there's plenty of examples of people actually defending trans people and then winning by resounding numbers all across the country.
It depends on what issue, though, Haas.
It's because the Democrats they stand for nothing. There is nothing that unites the base of support for the Democratic Party. They are this weird big tent, third way neoliberal party that is constantly pointing to institutional norms and defending this notion of civility. If that is your overarching campaign strategy, then yes, if you stand for nothing, you will, people can turn around and tell others what you actually stand for. They can reframe what you actually stand for and say this is the type of stuff that they care about actually. And therein lies the problem. And I think you and I will agree on this. If it was like a Bernie Sanders style candidacy, if Kamala Harris was like, I want Medicare for all, that Americans are suffering. I want to fix the housing crisis by implementing a federal jobs program backed like, mass housing boom that will actually fix the housing markets in all these big cities and all across the country by building a shit ton of houses. No public-private partnership, none of that. No opportunity economy language whatsoever. We're gonna just fucking build, baby, build. Okay. If those are some of the key markers that you're focusing on, this does two things. Okay. This does two things. Number one, Republicans are reactionary, so now they have something that they had to fight against. And if they don't have anything to fight against, they're going to find new fucking wedge issues to make everybody pay attention to, no matter how silly or stupid, right? So now they have to fight against that policy and present why that policy is bad. Now they have to sit there and lie about why giving healthcare to every American is actually going to be devastating because they're backed by their corporate donors. So that's a major issue with the way that the Democratic Party operates in general. And I think you agree with me on this, right? If you give him something to fight for, if you give him something to fight against, they're not going to fucking find new ways that find new things that they can just like draw a wedge on. So that's number one.
Okay.
Number two. Okay. The second thing is when you don't have this broad, very obvious policy that you like earnestly are fighting for, that you have been able to communicate to like the majority of the population, like this is my North Star. This is the key defining issue of the Democratic Party this election cycle. Okay. All of a sudden, when you cave and capitulate, the second point I was going to make is when you cave and capitulate the right-wing framing on these issues, the only thing you end up doing is basically admitting that the Republicans are right. And the Democrats have done this on immigration. The Democrats have done this on policing. The Democrats have allowed the Republicans to dominate the space over and over and over again. And they've done it with trans issues as well, or they're doing it now with trans issues as well. Just call it out for what it is. It's a simple distraction. This is not going to put food on your table. This is the way that the Republican Party gets away with being in the pocket of billionaires openly by saying this is the only thing that the Democrats care about. Trans people are your neighbors. They're not your landlord. They're not your boss, and they're not the reason why healthcare is so costly. Okay, they're a tiny group of people in this country that just want to live their same lives. They literally have the same exact class interests as you. They literally also have to pay rent at the end of the day. They also still are harmed by the same fucking shitty job opportunities that people have. They also are worried about not being able to own a home or retire at a reasonable age. The idea that these people are the reasons as to why you're experiencing economic anxieties is silly. Don't ever have this conversation. That's what I say. And that's how I deal with it as someone who is obviously somewhat radical in my pro-trans message overall, because
so look,
it's silly. It's a nonsensical position that you even recognize as nonsense.
So let me start with the agreement and move to the disagreement. So the agreement is super important here because you're right. And this ad is in a sense the perfect symbol of, in my experience, you only agree with half of this, but the merger of what is wrong with the Democratic Party's corporate wing and the radical left wing. You switch them together. We'll get to labels in a minute. Okay, so you smush them together and you have this ad, and this ad helped Trump win and Kamala Harris lose. Why are you smushing them together? For the exact reason that you explained, Hus. Because if they were like Bernie Sanders and they were economic populists, Bernie can say, why are we talking about that issue? We should be doing higher minimum wage and we should be doing universal health care, et cetera. And then now we're having a real conversation about things that affect people's lives. And Kamala Harris can't do that because she's too busy pleasing the donor class, right?
Tony West. Shouts out to my man, Tony West.
And who cost us the election more, that ad or Tony West? Not close. Tony West. Okay, so Tony West, who's the Uber executive, that's her, brother-in-law, told her, "Oh, you know what? You're too tough on corporations. Instead, you should give them a big bear hug. Go out there and put out that 90 corporate CEOs signed a letter saying you're awesome, and that you'll work for corporations and do everything that they want. Bring in Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney pulled a 13%. Liz Cheney is one of the most unpopular people, progressive." Data for Progress did a poll that showed the more she campaigned with Liz Cheney, the more she lost support. She lost enthusiasm. It was a super dumb idea, and that cost us more than this ad did. This whole idea of, oh my God, I love big business, and I'll do everything big business tells me. Look at Mark Cuban. He's on every cable channel telling you that I will do whatever the fuck business interests want. It's the worst idea in the world, especially when you're running against Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's going, hey, here's a billionaire, Elon Musk. I'm just going to give the government to him. And here's another billionaire, Miriam Adelson, and I'm going to give foreign policy to her. And here's Tim Mellon, weirdo guy who inherited all of his money and douchebag who wants tax cuts because he's just rich and earned nothing in his life. And I'm going to give him tax cuts for the rich, right? But they never make that case because they're corporate douchebags. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, all of Democratic leadership. And so these guys are never going to win another general election. The American people hate them. They should hate them, okay? And so what the right wing doesn't understand is both the populist left and what they call the woke left, I call radical left or whatever, we'll figure out the label in a minute. But in this case, you're on the right side. You say, fuck the corporate interests, fuck the donors, right? So, and the populist right agrees with that. So that's actually an interesting point that we should come back to, a point of agreement we should come back to. But the part where we disagree, Haas, is you say, well, if they're digging in on a wedge issue, ignore it. But Kamala Harris literally did that. They had a giant debate about whether to address it or not.
No.
They even pulled ads
You're
where
misunderstanding
they
me.
addressed it.
You're misunderstanding me.
And they decided, oh, fuck it, let's not address
You're
it. And it was a
wrong.
mistake.
They literally also, like, they did this with immigration especially. Like, they were like, we're not going to ignore it. We're just going to get ahead of it. And what they did with immigration, they're going to do with trans issues next election cycle. And it's the same principle over and over again. It makes you look like a hypocrite, and it makes you look like the Republicans were right all along. And the only thing it does is prime your base into conceding and agreeing with the Republican framing on an issue. If
So
there
what
was
do you
any
do instead? What I say is I delineate. So when you say, hey, Andy Bashir runs against it, but which issue? So if you're talking about constitutional rights, you fight for trans rights 100%. You're talking about military, you fight 100%. I'd fight on bathrooms. I'd fight on high school. But I draw the line on sports. I draw professional sports. I draw the line on giving free surgeries.
That's the thing.
Then you can defend your position and get back to
Okay,
where the great majority of American people agree with you.
You want to know why there's no reason to draw any of these lines? Because Kamala Harris did actually bring this up, which I thought was like, especially because like she didn't have a clear or consistent position on this at all. It was like, it was left out there in the dark, but like Trump did the same thing as well for undocumented migrants.
Say that.
It's just like it's a thing that nobody gives a shit about until people are primed into caring about it. That's my point. It's been happening for a very long time for prisoners that want to get this component of healthcare, and nobody technically gives a shit about it. It's already like a incredibly tiny, minuscule, marginal percentage. So it doesn't fucking matter. Like it ultimately doesn't matter. I'm saying if the Democrats had
But it
something
did matter.
if Democrats had, but it didn't, and I'll get to that in a second. If Democrats had something that they were fighting for, nobody would give a shit about this. That's the point.
Yeah, but that
you
I
brought
agree.
up Bernie Sanders and you said, oh, healthcare, universal healthcare. Bernie Sanders has also said trans rights are human rights. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like,
But that's the difference
it's
between
not like-
2016 and 2020.
it's not like Bernie Sanders. It's not like Bernie Sanders himself is saying like, yeah, fuck trans people. We got to cut him out of this
But nobody's
bargain.
saying fuck trans people. You guys are just making that up.
No.
But Haas, when
No,
you frame it
first
that
of all,
way, you get
the
all these crazed
Republicans
people
are
online.
saying that. Republicans are saying that.
No, I know, but we're not saying that. But
No,
you get
I
all
know.
these crazed people
You're
online
too-
who are like, oh my God, if you don't agree to free surgeries for every trans person on planet Earth, you're a fucking Nazi. Well, you know those people exist, and fuck those people.
Okay.
That is the radical left, and they are stupid, and they do cost us elections.
No, you're hyper focusing, and I've had this conversation privately with you many times over. You are hyper focusing on people that are in your replies on Twitter, and
So
because
you agree
that's
with
all
me,
you
that radical left
because
is bullshit,
all you interact
stupid dumbasses. Do you agree?
There are a million people that are both in your replies that have also gotten mad at me as well, time and time again, on specific issues, maybe ones that even pertain to trans rights. Okay? It literally doesn't matter. people get very passionate, understanding. I'm very
There's
understanding.
shocking agreement. I agree. There's
I
13
understand-
douchebags
I underst-
online. That's what I said from day one.
I know, but why the fuck would you ever hyper focus on
Okay, but
people
Haas,
like
because
that?
you look, no. So you might be
No,
doing the
you're
right
doing-
thing. Hold on.
You're doing
You
the
on
Bill
your
Maher
show-
thing.
No,
You're
bullshit,
demanding that there needs to be a sister
bullshit.
No, you're
Hold
doing
on,
the
let me
Sister
explain.
Soldier moment.
No,
That's it.
bullshit.
No, you're trying to-
So the minute we said the most reasonable things on earth, which you now agree with apparently, then what happened? It wasn't just the 13 douchebags online. And by the way, everybody said, no, those 13 douchebags represent all the left. You're not on the left anymore because the 13 douchebags control the left. And then what happened next? Then Majority Report jumped in, and Lance from the Serves, and all the other little dirtbags jumped in, and they were like, "No, Cenk and Anna are turning right. The 13 douchebags are right. We need to protect every trans person should get free
Listen,
surgery.
we got
even in China, even though we have nothing to do with China,
You gotta
we
stop.
hate them. They're Nazis.
You gotta okay.
I mean, I'm 100% right. Every dirtbag show did it.
You gotta calm
Every
down.
dirtbag show did it. Tell me I'm wrong.
This is reframing an issue that is now we've moved away from the electoral consequences of a trans ad to your own personal anger and frustration that you have with left-wing media online. We are
So do you agree left-wing media online, those guys that I listed are full of shit?
I have
and in a tiny, stupid minority?
I have disagreements with everyone in this space, but there's a reason why seemingly I don't catch the same amount of strays that you do because I don't hyper focus.
I can tell you why.
I don't hyper focus. What do you think it is?
They think you're hot, young. I don't mean attractive. God bless on that. Okay. I'm also obviously hot. I mean, as in they think, oh, the young people watch Hasan. He's cool. And you give the thing of like, oh, no, trans people are right on everything, right? You don't come out and make the distinctions that Anna and I made. Okay. So they think, oh, no, he's good. He's extreme as we are.
I think
he's woke left. Yay, extremeness.
I think the reason, first of all, you're
okay. By the way, Majority Report and all of you guys, you better attack him. He apparently agrees with me. Okay, you better attack him. You're not going to attack him, are you?
You're
get the fuck out of here.
You're hyper personalizing this into like criticisms that you've
comes
received.
and punches you in the face 12 times, and you go, what? Why are you hyper personalizing it?
Because
just because I called you a Nazi, now it's personal to you.
Because myself, you, Majority Report,
but I never changed my policy.
All
of
this is inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. And whenever there's like drama, for example, I've been getting attacked mercilessly by my former podcast co-host that has been actively trying to deplatform me for the past 2 months because he thinks that, or he's claiming that I am creating a space that is anti-Semitic. The way I've dealt with that, for the most part, is by just actively ignoring it leading up to the election because I was like, this is some fucking silly nonsense. And in the aftermath, I covered some of the broader points, and I fucking moved on. If you extend the conflict that way, instead of trying to find a reasonable middle ground, and even show humility in a certain, even show humility instead of saying I'm right. There's never going to be any sort of real solidarity. Why am I going to show
humility to you, a bunch of idiots who are wrong?
Because I
like what does humility mean? Like, oh, maybe you're right about your dumb opinion that's going to cost us this election. Okay. Maybe you're right about your dumb opinion that gets the majority of the country to hate us when our economic positions are overwhelmingly popular. Maybe you making us intensely unpopular when we should be focusing on universal health care, higher wages, paid family leave. But you idiots hate policy. All you want is identity politic bullshit, and you think that drives ratings, and you want me to show humility to those morons? None. Zero.
Let's have a meta conversation really quickly about the ways in which branding works online. I am of this mindset that every single person is far too busy and far too self-involved to pay attention to the more nuanced conversations that others are having on any particular issue. This is why, even when there is like a faucet of smears that I am attacked with clips that are completely out of context, I address it and I move on. Okay? I address it and I move on, and I come at this conversation with an understanding that most people are not fully aware of what my analysis is on any particular matter. This has happened in the past with, me purchasing a house where people were made a big fucking deal about it. It's okay. And I, at that same, even back then I said, look, people are angry. People are frustrated with their position in society. People are frustrated with a lack of opportunity. And in that process, when they see fucking rich asshole like myself, buy a house, they're going to get mad at me. And there's a healthy amount of anger towards wealthy people there that I agree with as well. I think that they're misdirecting their anger at the wrong person. But ultimately, I move on. If I spend every waking moment covering, the anger that I'm receiving, and if I spend every waking moment covering things that are out of context, then I'm not going to be able to, I'm just going to be that. I'm going to be the person who's responding to drama all the fucking time when I feel like there are far larger, more consequential issues at play.
Now, let me take the other side on the meta conversation.
Hyperfixating on not only a very small sliver of society that is, in your honest opinion, has been openly targeted as the major reason as to why people are angry, is offering legitimacy to the right-wing position. I think there's a more effective way of communicating that, and it's something that I do on a regular basis, which is, this is a simple distraction. You don't care about this. And the people that do hyperfixate on this are fucking weird and gross. Leave people alone. Let people live. These people are your fucking neighbors, and they and yourself are more aligned on class issues in more meaningful ways than you think. Stop hating on people that you don't fucking understand. Mind your own damn business. Tim Walz does a fantastic job with this, and Andy Bashar has done a fantastic job with this. They're both very popular governors that you like as well.
But that's literally my position. All right, so listen.
But the reason why people don't think that that's your position is because people see the clips. People see clips out of context.
I know, but what do? They see clips on douchebag shows who are purposely misrepresenting our position and pretending that we're against all trans rights. So, so your position to that is surrender, okay? And no, I never surrender. So look, and here, let me explain why, though. Why do I think that's surrender? Because we've tried this, Haas. So let's, on that meta conversation, so we tried it with Trump. So Young Turks viewers will remember in the beginning when he first started running in 2015, I thought he was so illegitimate that he was doing it as a con, which by the way turned out to be wrong.
Who?
Trump. And we blurred out his face. First we didn't show him, then we blurred out his face, and then eventually we gave up and started showing who he was. Ignoring the beast never works. So then I remember when,
but these people are not the beast.
Hold on, let me finish the point. When Dave Rubin came out and started lying, 100% lies, lie after lie after lie, we ignored it because we're like, what? That's fucking mental, right? But then the lies started to take root because he goes on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan's like, oh, really? Tell me more. Oh, my God, Dave Rubin's so right. And then he went on 100 shows. And so then Ben Shapiro and Daily Wire comes up, more gigantic, and Crowder comes up. And we're like, oh, these are pimples on our ass. Who cares about Shapiro? He's so small. Crowder, who cares? He's tiny. He's microscopic. Who cares, right? And we didn't address them. And you know what happened? They festered and festered and festered. And next thing you know, Dave Rubin, everybody started to think, oh, I wonder if he's right about the Young Turks and they have some evil, nefarious purpose or something. Then we started fighting back and we crushed that motherfucker. Now he's a laughing stock. So whenever anybody thinks of Dave Rubin, they're like, oh, yeah, he's that dumb guy, right?
Yeah, but that's not because of you. That's also because of Majority Report, ironically enough. And people like myself.
I know. When we fight back, everybody gets their feelings
the point
hurt.
is, it's not...
And
it's
so,
not just
it's
you.
Never us. We never get any credit. We only get discredit.
The reason why I'm bringing up Majority Report and myself in this process is because, ultimately, right, we are all aligned on virtually every single issue. So in many respects, you feel chastised individually. You feel like you've been outcast by the left or whatever, the media representation of the left is.
They're not the left. I'm the left.
Okay.
No, 100%. And you agree with that.
Okay. Please, just listen.
No, because we have to.
But you're not the singular
the
force.
Idiots are making everyone think they are the left. They're like, we're the left, we're the real left. Okay, we are super extreme. We want free surgeries for every criminal. Yes, we're the left. And oh, Nazi. And Haas, what happens? People think they are the left. So if you say you're right, Cenk, those are the extreme idiot left.
I don't
and
think
you
that
are
they're
the
the
left,
extreme,
then I'm okay.
No, I don't think those are the extreme idiot left. I think that there is going to be a diversity of thought in any issue that people have, and it's a matter of who you make your enemies in the finite amount of time that we have on the space, the finite amount of time that we have, living on planet Earth. It's about the economy of time and utilizing it appropriately. I don't spend any time. I do not spend any
just
time.
Let him attack you and sit there and don't correct anything. Let all the lies fester.
Yes.
Wait, you didn't let me finish. So Dave Rubin, now he's a laughingstock. Then Jimmy Dore comes in
because Dave Rubin is a right winger.
Yeah.
Majority Report is not.
So you're saying
you are in agreement with the Majority Report.
No. Hold on. Let me finish the thought. Let me finish the thought. So on Jimmy Dore, he comes in and goes, "Oh, they're paid by Nancy Pelosi. They're paid by the CIA." Fucking lunatic, right? And so we let it fester. Finally, we're like, get this fucker out of here. And we tell the people truth and we crush him. Now he's a fucking joke on the internet, right? So we go on. And anytime we don't fight, it festers. Anytime we do fight, we crush them and we move the fuck on. And nobody thinks Jimmy Dore's the left anymore. Nobody thinks Dave Rubin's the left anymore. And so now these guys come and attack us going, yeah, we're the real left, we're the real left.
There's a difference.
And you're saying, no, don't crush them. Just let them fester and people pretend that they're the real left. No, we don't do that. If you're going to say stupid shit and you're going to try to punch us in the face, we're going to punch you back, not on our behalf, on behalf of Democratic voters who you are lying about. The Democratic voters do not agree with you. They agree with us. So sad fucking day for you. And I'm not going to let you lie and pretend that the Democratic voters are on your side because you're a fucking liar and they're not on your side. Do you agree that the Democratic voters are on my side?
I don't care what the Democratic voters are on, of whichever side they're on right now. We've lost the plot. Okay.
No,
we've completely lost the plot because now the conversation is about like the serfs or Majority Report, and I think that's a completely and utterly unproductive conversation to have.
Your strategy is when grifters on the left attack you, whether it's
I don't think
Rubin,
they're grifters.
I think Cedar's a grifter.
I disagree.
Okay. Oh, by the way, so now all of a sudden you're defending Cedar. When he calls me a grifter, you don't defend.
I don't. First of all, I've never heard him call you a grifter.
He's called me every fucking name in the book because he's a low rent grifter.
Stop.
Okay, no, I'll tell you. I'll out him right now. When we were in Vegas together, when we were in the same network, he starts attacking Jimmy Dore, and I say, hey, cut this shit out. I agree with you, not Jimmy. But you're attacking him in a way that is over the top and totally unnecessary and counterproductive. And you know what Sam said to me? Sam said, oh, well, he has a bigger audience than me. So if I do that, I'm going to siphon off of his audience. You know why I siphon off? Oh, because I am right and he is wrong. And the audience deserves to hear my truth. So he's doing the same thing to us.
But you agree with him.
And I told him not to do it.
But you agree with him that Jimmy Dore is
No, this is pre-Jimmy going full right-wing, full lunatic.
Yeah.
Okay,
but
on that particular issue they were debating about, I agreed with Sam and not Jimmy. I don't mind him saying, hey, I don't agree with Jimmy. What I minded is him saying, oh, Jimmy is terrible and bad intent and blah, blah, blah. But brother, he hadn't even done that yet.
He disagrees with Jimmy Dore on this particular, whichever issue.
But he did it with bad intent, Haas.
What was it on?
He says, I don't even remember. It's irrelevant. What he says is he literally told me, I try to take other people's audience by getting into their basically next to their algorithm, right? So if you've got a guy like that who has bad intent, you're saying if you deem him right wing, you should attack him. But if you deem him left wing, you should let him lie about you. You should let him call you every name in the book.
No.
You should let him pretend he represents the left when he doesn't represent the left. He doesn't represent Democrats. You should let him trick people into thinking that the Democrats are super unpopular, that the left wing is super unpopular. No, I'm not going to let him trick people into thinking that.
Okay, listen. Sam Cedar or any number of different left-wing content creators have no bearing on the actual policies that the Republican right are implementing. No, they don't. They don't.
Why did Kamala
You're
Harris
out of your mind.
Why did Kamala Harris in 2019 say on tape that transgender detainees should get surgery if they're undocumented immigrants? She said it because there was hold on, Haas, let me finish. Because there was enormous pressure. There was enormous pressure from the radical left to say, oh yeah, you got to be pro transgender detainee immigrant surgery. You have to, otherwise you're not left enough. And she's an idiot. She doesn't have any thoughts in her head. She was like, okay, I'll adopt that position. And it was because of the extreme left that she adopted that position because she's an empty vessel.
You are literally attributing the consistent thing that you also agree that Kamala Harris is a bad politician with bad instincts and did not have a good way to communicate what she would have done differently for trans people, okay, to fucking Majority Report and any number of different like extreme leftist outlets that literally get a fraction of the views that I get in this regard. Like, no disrespect to them, but like all of us combined do not have the same motion. You're talking about the special interest
You never
groups.
fight them, so nobody knows. Everybody thinks you're extreme left. Everybody thinks that you're the woke left extraordinaire, right? So like, and why do they think that? Apparently you don't agree, but they think that because you don't actually ever fight on this issue. You don't delineate.
The reality is the way that people are presented by others ends up changing the perception that they have in the minds of a lot of people that are they're simply just not paying attention. I come at it from a much more understanding point of view, and I understand that there is a large tent of people with a diversity of different opinions. And there are moments where I will yell at a chatter, but outside of that, in terms of the finite amount of time we have spending, I find it more productive to spend it focusing on the actual people who hold the levers of power rather than people who I'm aligned with almost entirely, whether it be yourself with some very major disagreements or even same-seater and the like.
But
that's
Haas, you're making it sound like
presenting
we
yourself,
just have a difference of agreement.
No, presenting yourself as
but we don't
an
have,
intellectual,
Haas.
presenting yourself as the opposite of these people, okay, serves no purpose. It just only makes you look like you're the moderate voice in here and they're the extreme voices and whatever.
That's true, though.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just make your argument and move on and focus on the things that do matter.
Say the same thing to them because they're the ones because intent matters, Haas. Intent matters. Look, you know how many people disagree with me in Young Turks hosts? So I had this giant same exact debate we were having about the trans ad with Jordan Ewell and with Jules Sulzdev. This is the one time I get it wrong, Jules. I love those guys. Francesca's in our network. I disagree with them all the time. We have the debates on air. There's nothing wrong with those debates. That's wonderful. No problem at all. Where I draw the line is bad intent.
Yeah, when I have disagreements with any number of different people on any other networks, I say ultimately I don't care. We are aligned in this fight. We care about protecting undocumented immigrants. We care about protecting trans people, and I'm not going to pay too much attention to this because ultimately, I don't give a shit if there are disagreements. I have disagreements with my friends all the fucking time. Ultimately, if I think someone is almost entirely aligned with me on a lot of these key issues, then I see no reason.
And they call you a Nazi and a grifter. You say, okay, fuck it.
It doesn't matter. People call me. Yes.
Okay,
people
no
call me all of it.
Okay.
I think it's ridiculous if it's coming from the right.
Haas,
if it's coming from the right, then you can use that as an opportunity to show
politics.
why they're fucking ridiculous.
No, but let's get back to politics. So why does anybody think we're extreme, right? Why does anybody think the left is extreme? Because they have a whole bunch of hosts that they could point to and thought leaders and people online.
Yeah, myself included.
Right, that they point to and they go, look at these extreme positions that they have. So that taints the rest of the left. And that is counterproductive, it's unfair, and it's inaccurate. So stop pretending the most extreme positions are the most left-wing positions. They are not. They're the least representative of the left.
I think hyper-focusing on what the right is considering to be the most extreme positions is only giving it more air for no reason. This is why I said this is the sister soldier.
The independents decide the elections.
This is why
and you're losing that battle.
This is why I said this is a sister soldier moment where you're like identifying someone to your left that is more extreme than you to show everybody how moderate you are And there's no reason to do
show
that.
them how moderate Democratic voters are.
There's no
because
reason.
they brainwash
There's no
people
reason to
into
do that.
thinking that Democratic voters are lunatics. Who, by the way, okay, let's argue this: that no crime exists.
There's no reason to do that.
Crime is great.
There's no reason to do that.
Crime is wonderful.
You want to know why there's no reason to do that? Donald Trump is president. You never see Republicans do that, even if they do actually disagree. Even if they do actually disagree, it doesn't matter. There's no reason. There's no reason to ever turn around and be like, I disagree with these people.
You're 100% wrong on this. So let's look at California. So you say it doesn't matter.
I gotta pee real
electorally.
quick. You can keep going. We'll talk about crime in a second. Go ahead.
Okay.
I gotta pee.
All right. So look, guys. I want to respond to him, so I want to wait till he gets back. But I'll say this. Number one. The thing Hasan's right about it is there's so much more that we agree on than we disagree on, and that is why I get mad when people pretend that the disagreements are the only things that matter. I'm not the one pretending that. The people that attack us, how dare you disagree? How dare you? That is not a sense. Disagreement, okay? Now you have to pull back the line and you have to start calling, women this and that, that trans people should be getting the free surgeries and be able to play in professional sports. And if you don't, you're not really on the left. And in fact, I get this all the time. You have the biggest left-wing network. So you have a responsibility to agree with it. What the fuck does that mean? I don't have a responsibility to agree with you. You don't have a responsibility to represent my audience, to represent the left in an accurate way, and to represent Democrats in an accurate way. I don't have a responsibility to take the most extreme positions because somebody decided that having not voted out having representing the most single Democratic voters says no, that was the left. Well, when you say that, and you shut off debate, well, then you're doing a massive disservice to the left, not to the right. So look, at any time you go on Young Turks, you have disagreements all the time. There's something wrong with saying that if you don't have the most extreme positions, that you're not really on the left and you're a right-wing grifter and blah, 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 blah. So let's do crime. So did crime have, you and I had a huge debate about it, and you thought it's not going to affect elections, and it obviously did affect elections, Haas. So, I mean, here in California, first of all, Donald Trump picked up 10 counties overall. He closed the gap between Kamala Harris and himself massively in California. George Gascon lost 60-40. The mayor of London Breed, mayor of San Francisco, lost overwhelmingly. The mayor of Oakland got recalled 65-35. Prop 36 passed with a 70% approval.
Yeah.
So the Democratic voters of California said, yes, crime is real. And yes, we hate it and do not want more crime. We want less crime. Those are Democratic voters.
So can I ask you something? Do you think that Californians love involuntary servitude, also known as slavery, in their prison structure?
So no, you guys, that's exactly my point, Haas. So that's a
they voted for it.
No, hold on. There's a prop that Hasan's talking about here in California that basically said we should get rid of slavery in the prisons, and it lost. And that's terrible that it lost. And my thesis on why it lost, when of course the Democratic voters of California, if they understood what that meant, would say, oh, no, I don't want slavery in prisons. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But they voted against almost every left-wing ballot measure, including minimum wage, because they thought, oh, the left wing is the extreme wing. They're the pro-crime wing. They're the pro-super extreme positions. So even if I'm a California Democrat, I'm voting no on everything. If a Democrat proposes it, no. And that's why we got slaughtered in this election.
So, okay. So number one, you and I both agree. Well, if I were to ask you, I think, do you think the people of Mississippi are more, are more progressive than the broader California electorate? You would probably say no.
No, yeah, culturally no.
And having said that, in the state of Mississippi, when that same exact ballot initiative was clearly defined as slavery, it passed overwhelmingly. They voted against. They voted against slavery in the prison structure.
Do you see how that makes my point?
No, my point is that the way you frame things certainly matter. It matters a lot because most people are not paying attention to anything. That's why you had people searching if Joe Biden had dropped the day before the election. That's why communication matters. That's why who you define as your enemies matter. But if we're going to talk about, so perception is important. And narrative in many instances is more important than the truth, right? We agree with that, especially in this day and age.
So framing matters a tremendous amount. We agree.
Yeah. Framing matters a tremendous amount. And also narrative
Yes.
is more important than the truth. I think this is something that you would agree with as well.
Then again, you get into short run, long run. But yeah, it's super
I mean,
important.
it is. I mean, this is a
Narrative
this
is super important.
This is almost a callback to the Alan Lichtman conversation, right? Like disinformation played a big role. It's not just disinformation. It's also information that's coming out of like legitimate sources with authority, like legitimate outlets of information that people still trust, like their local news stations. 90% of it is owned by Sinclair Broadcasting. They're super right wing. Yada yada, but also newspapers, national newspapers, things that people care about. Fox News now dominates the media consumption by 73%. Last time I checked, it's an insane number, right? So in that process, I think something that fell apart for the Democrats and their unwillingness to actually fight back and counter message on anything because they're cowardly was the issue of crime. There's been a lot of analysis on why crime rates have gone down historically, and they have completely rebounded and are trending downwards once again, as they have since the 90s, which I know you're going to get mad at, but hold on. And that most surveys conducted on the matter show that Americans think that their neighborhoods, and the crime has not increased in their neighborhoods, but actually crime has increased elsewhere. So why do they think that they're safe in their neighborhoods, but they still feel like crime is exploding in the country? I think it is because of the right-wing misinformation faucet that is completely dominating independent media and completely dominating even major newspapers, and that everyone is constantly in a holding pattern on whatever Republicans decide is the major point that they want to argue for. And because the Democratic Party basically operates as controlled opposition against them, they just sit there, they wait for the next talking points to come out so they can do a terrible job trying to address any of the truths of the matter, and they just get dominated over and over again. There's a second part of this, though. It's what you see, right? Now, not only have all of these, not only has the crime rate actually gone down, and I think you recognize that as well, the National Crime Victimization Survey does not show like a major blip in unreported crimes. There is definitely more unreported crimes than before, and we can address why that's happening as well. But overall, the real reason why I think a lot of people see crime everywhere, and especially in cities, in my opinion, even though Republican and red states have significantly higher rates of crime than states like California do, the reason why most people fall into this trap of assuming that California is a crime-ridden shithole as opposed to like a place like Alabama or a place like South Carolina, despite the fact that they have higher rates of crime and including violent crime than California does, is because narrative is more important than the actual truth. Also, the reason why Californians themselves genuinely believe that this is also happening and no one is addressing it,
because it's actually happening.
No, it's because of what they perceive to be what they perceive to be is disorder and dysfunction and crime that is happening in every orifice of blue cities.
So
it's homeless, it's poverty, it's visible aspects of extreme poverty that in many instances can actually be a crime or will sometimes be criminalized. Homelessness, trash on the streets. You see someone doing drugs on the corner of the street.
Extreme left positions that have fucked us.
This is Gavin Newsom, the extreme leftist.
But he does agree with you guys. He
no,
was
he
on
doesn't.
your side on Prop
Gavin
36.
Newsom.
He was
Gavin
on your
Newsom,
side on Prop 36.
the person who physically went and cleared a homeless
But
encampment is
only
on my
after he
side.
encouraged them for 3 to 4 years straight.
No,
because he thought you guys were
you
right.
and I are in agreement if we fucking hate Gavin Newsom, but maybe not on the same fucking basis. I hate Gavin Newsom because he refused time and time again, despite numerous ballot measures that wanted to fix one of the most significant, most consequential aspects of why homelessness persists in a state like California. He refused to do it because he's backed by the same fucking corporate investors that say, do not fix the housing market. Do not touch the housing market at all. Housing costs must always go up. The number one reason why homelessness persists, the number one reason why homelessness exists is because people get priced out of the market. When people get priced out of the market, they start living in their fucking cars. When you start living in your car, you no longer have access to running water. You can't clean yourself. You lose your job. Your job attainment goes away. When you lose your job, you fall further down that pit until you arrive at the homeless guy that has been traumatized by fucking living outside and looks like a crazy person, is probably fucking experiencing significant mental health complications and doing drugs to fucking self-medicate in that process. And everyone sees that and goes, that's crime. Why is no one fixing this?
No.
And that is the major issue. It's not.
Can
It's
I haven't gotten in here in like 20 minutes. So let me address crime.
Oh, first of all, you've
Okay.
definitely talked a lot more than me. I've given you all the space.
Okay, listen. So let me address crime, then we'll get to homelessness. So on crime, you have to separate out national numbers from local numbers. Why? Because Tennessee didn't do the same things as California and New York did. So you have to look at, okay, when they tried different things, how did it work out? So the national numbers are totally irrelevant. So when you get to California, I looked it up this morning because I knew we were going to have this discussion. So pre-pandemic to now, violent crime up 15%, homicide up 15%. By the way, crime is complicated. Not every number goes up and down in the way that you would expect, or goes up all at once or goes down all at once.
What year
So,
to
for
year are you comparing?
2019 to now, okay? So like because we did a lot of the reforms in 2020, okay? But it's also complicated because the pandemic actually drove crime as well. So there was a number of different factors that in. But did crime go up? You're saying no, it's just a narrative. It didn't really go up, but it did.
No.
So
crime,
violent crime went up 15%, homicide went up 15%.
and it's
Hold
gone
on, let me
down.
finish. Well, no. This is overall last 4 years, okay? So yeah, it was spiked in 2020,
Yes.
2020 and 2021.
Yes.
Then it started to slowly come down, and last year it came down a little bit. But now, where is it? It's still 15% higher than when we started on violent and crime and homicide. And from where we started, it's now up 29% on retail theft, 43% on auto theft, and 52% on car accessory theft. Those are real. People feel that. Everybody's had their catalytic converter stolen. Everybody's dealt with minor crime that wasn't an issue before, but is an issue now. Those numbers are real. So when you say to them, oh, no, it's just a narrative, and they're like, God damn it, man, my uncle got robbed and I go to the CVS and I can't get a goddamn toothpaste. You're saying CVS, imagine that bullshit, right? And so when you are telling them, don't believe your lying eyes, don't believe the numbers, you should believe me, it's just a false narrative, they don't believe you, and they were right. And so when you saw in the elections, it wasn't that the right wing tricked the people of California. And Haas, this is so important because in 2020, they tried a ballot measure that was very similar to Prop 36, okay, to repeal Prop 47, which is what reduced penalties, right? And it failed. It only got 38%. Why? Because the people had not yet felt the crime, okay? And after 2020, when the crime actually went up, they felt the crime, they experienced the crime, and they voted against the crime. None of that was narrative. It was real, and it had a massive effect on the elections in California.
Okay. So as far as retail theft, is a conversation. We've had this conversation already. That retail theft is down, and not only is retail theft down, I don't know where you're getting your numbers from, but retail
which
theft,
time period?
Retail theft in terms of like organized retail theft, in terms of crime across the board, even in 2020, the actual theft crime is like not the violent crime and homicides. Homicides was the only thing that spiked, okay, which is pretty consequential. It's pretty significant. Even homicides have also gone down since the major blip that they experienced in like post 2020 and 2021. As far as like retail theft goes, many of the places that claim that there was organized retail theft occurring openly recognized that they were, using that as a way to massage their numbers. The real shrink that increased was completely adjusted to the increased foot traffic. I mean,
So
this
you're
is not
showing
even
an article from 2020.
No,
I
no,
just gave
I'm-
you the numbers from the last 4
No,
years.
I know. I'm giving you. I'm showing you that like this is the article that I'm showing that says shootings and killings are up, even in that time frame.
Right. So I just
Okay.
gave you the definitive numbers in the last 4 years in California. So it did go up. And Haas, like
The reason we're having a conversation that not only is wrong, it's something that the people that actually the people themselves admitted to why it was wrong. That at the time I looked at the situation, I looked at the organized retail theft, I looked at the National Retailers Association numbers, and I adjusted shrink and the percentages that contribute to shrink, and found out that the overarching number of thefts that were occurring were not actually happening as a direct consequence of like organized retail theft, because no one is going to be able to steal billions of dollars worth of merchandise by organizing retail theft. It was actually happening, and you might like this, you might appreciate this, because of fucking automation. It was happening because normal Americans, when they go into a store and they do self-checkout, which is more beneficial for corporations because now you don't have to pay benefits for cashiers. Now you don't have to, pay a whole bunch of people to actually sit at the fucking cash register. Now you don't have to do workers' comp. Now you don't have to do paid, family leave or anything like that, or no health care. Now you just have an automated machine that one person is controlling every now and then. In that process, they realized that shrink would actually go up, because people would just go in and maybe put a Snickers bar in there and toss it in their bag. That is why shrink went up.
No,
okay?
Haas,
That is the real reason why shrink went up, or on the theft side. Okay.
two things can be true at the same time. So that point about shrinkage and automation is absolutely right. And the right wing totally ignores that. You are right to bring it up. But that doesn't mean that the actual theft at the retail level didn't happen. Number one, the numbers indicate that it happened. Number two, the idea that CVS, Walgreens, all these guys were just decided to pretend that the people were going to steal this stuff and start locking it up when they weren't actually stealing it is crazy. They were actually stealing it.
No, people,
that's why they locked it up.
I know.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, but
okay. So
but
both
you
of those
can't
things
make
are true.
up for billions of dollars in lost revenue.
But when
from
people
the
go to a CVS and that shit's locked up, they
700
get super mad.
I know, and it goes back to literally the same exact thing that we were talking about with respect to seeing homeless people and being like, this is crime. Crime is everywhere, and instilling a sense
but
of
crime
panic.
is everywhere. And look. So now let's go to homeless
But
people.
you're talking about organized retail theft when this conversation has already, like, we've closed the book on that. That like CEOs and CFOs have
even before we
openly
go to homeless people. But look, let's
openly
talk
have
about the
said-
substance. Let's talk about the substance.
they've openly said that they lied about it. Like
No.
Yes, they did. This article is literally that.
Haas,
Maybe.
Look, you're cherry picking.
I'm not.
And you're getting to a point that they admitted something that they did wrong that I agree with you on. But I'm telling you that two things can be true at the same time. What you're pointing out is definitely right. They've also admitted many other things. They also admitted that they drove up pricing during inflation because they were price gouging and they were taking profits. They bragged it about in their shareholder meetings. That is absolutely right. But the crime is also correct.
No,
when you go to the substance of the actual laws, I voted yes on Prop 36. Did you vote no on Prop 36?
Prop 36 was
increasing the penalties.
increasing the penalties. Yeah, I voted no on it. Yes.
Yeah. So we have a disagreement.
Yeah.
So what were the penalties? They said for theft under $950, if you've done it 3 times, then we're going to move it to a felony instead of a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Okay.
I disagree.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's because.
Do you want to know why I disagree? Do you care?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
So a couple things. This also goes back to narrative overcomes truth, and narrative is more important than truth. If I were to tell you that the state of Texas has less stringent rules on what constitutes a felony theft than the state of California, which has implemented the $900 policy since like 2014, and it's not a recent introduction into California state law, would you be surprised to find that out?
But those two things are crossed together, Huss, because when everybody talks about how California changed the laws and now you can go steal things that are under $950 all day long and it's a misdemeanor, and since it's a misdemeanor, they're going to plead you down to nothing. you publicize that, then everybody goes, shit, let's go steal some stuff because apparently it's totally fine now, and more people go and steal. So that is where the reality meets the narrative.
So you're saying that the media coverage over this has led to an increase of people going out and stealing stuff.
Both things are true. That the laws were changed, it did make it easier to steal, and then the media covered it, and then more people stole because the media covered it, and they're like, oh, it turns out you could just steal and get away with it.
So you and I agree that, like, I'm not saying that no theft has occurred. Of course, it did. We've all seen the videos, right? You and I, on the other hand, do agree that the larger, more consequential increase in shrink came from automation and not like organized retail theft. I think you would agree to that.
Yeah,
because it's impossible.
On the scale of the numbers, I hear you.
I mean,
I haven't looked at it
it's
myself, but that sounds right.
It is mathematically impossible for organized retail theft to contribute billions of dollars in lost revenue, because it would have to literally be like pandemonium, because you're the things that you're stealing, the things that you're stealing are not expensive enough. Like, they're not stealing gold bars, they're stealing fucking deodorant and shit, right? So like over time, the real ways in which this happens is if this is a mass pattern change and a mass attitude change that makes it easier to fucking steal small things here and there. Those numbers add up in a significantly larger way to the overall shrink of the companies. They know that. They already baked that into their profit margins because it's still cheaper for them to lay off a shit ton of their employees and allow some people to fucking steal, and it contributes to the shrink. What they also did, and this is not just the Walgreens wasn't the only one, or CVS wasn't the only one. There was a brick and mortar retail is incredibly expensive. They're getting dominated by Amazon, that has now purchased Whole Foods and is doing Amazon Fresh, and they're getting dominated by grocery delivery services. Okay, they cannot compete and maintain brick and mortar retail stores. That's why I believe one of these major chains actually went bankrupt recently. I think it was CVS or Walgreens that literally had to close all of their stores.
But we agree on all that. And I'll add on top of that, private equity buys them, and then they reduce their costs.
So
which then drives
if
a
you
vicious
understand,
cycle.
Rite Aid was the one that went bankrupt.
I understand all that, but you're not addressing the point. That can be true while crime going up can also be true.
No, you are. I'm afraid you are laser focusing on a more you're laser focusing on something that invokes emotion, when actually looking at the data shows that the much larger problem here, or the much, like, not even a real problem for them,
which one is larger,
is actually coming from
29%. It did go up. It is real. So do you get that it's counterproductive when you keep saying things that make people think that you think that they're making it up in their head and it's not real at all?
Because I have looked at the actual numbers.
But do you see that makes them, that alienates them even more?
Okay.
You're saying, even though it went up 29%, I want you to pretend that it didn't. No, and I want you to say it's not real. Well, they're not going to say it.
No.
And the elections prove it.
Okay. Let me give you a parallel here. The Democratic Party kept saying, right, that the economic impact that Americans were facing was inconsequential, that the economy was good, actually, right? They kept repeating it over and over again, and people were like, what the fuck are you talking about, right? My anger towards the Democrats in that regard was that they basically, and I use as an example on the Pod Save America the episode that I hosted yesterday, and this is a famous tweet that I'm basically paraphrasing. If you saw a homeless person and chucked 2 pennies at them, okay, and then they yelled at you and they were like, fuck you, why are you giving me 2 pennies, piece of shit? Technically, you did improve their, material wealth by 2 pennies. Why are they being angry? Why are they angry at me for genuinely improving their material wealth by 2 pennies? You can frame every number and every percentage in a way that suits your argument, but what you have to look at is the actual data, which I have done. That's why I bring up the National Retailers Association numbers when I'm having this conversation with you about shrink increasing overall. When you say retail theft went up 29%, what you're failing to account for, and by the way, retail shrink has gone down for the record year over year.
All the numbers are better in the last year.
But the instance where it did go up, it actually went up because there was more foot traffic in comparison to the year prior. When there's more people going into the stores, there are more people who are able to steal stuff. And if you and I both agree that it's not organized retail theft that is like massively contributing to the increase in shrink, but instead it's actually automated. Automated cash registers.
But they don't care
and
about
self-checkout.
But Hans, the average guy doesn't care what is leading to CVS's declining profit.
So you're saying the average guy doesn't care about the truth?
Let me finish. What the average guy cares about is, I went to the store the other day, and I've heard this story 100 times, and they're not making it up, and it's backed up by the numbers. I went to the store the other day. Some douchebag walks in, grabs a bunch of stuff, and leaves. And then I feel like a sucker sitting here paying for it because apparently anybody can come rob this place. And that's not even recorded in the numbers. And the numbers are still up. And there's a giant mountain of things that did not get reported because there was a period of a couple of years here in LA. It's better now, where I was we probably talked about this before too. I was at a Supercuts. The window's broken. Why? Oh, people come in here all the time, take whatever they want. They smash the windows. We stopped calling the cops because the cops aren't showing up. Why aren't the cops showing up? Partly because they were trying to prove a point. Oh, yeah, you guys are protesting us. We're not going to work. But another reason was because they would bring people to the DA. And the DA would say, not just because of Prop 47, because George Gascon said, don't prosecute them. Don't prosecute. Put them back on the street. In
terms of not reporting crimes,
went up.
I can't speak for your local.
They care about what happens to them at the grocery store, and they care that, hey, I don't care about the goddamn shrinkage. What I care about is when I go to buy
shrink is theft. That's why I'm saying shrink. It's not about the profit margins.
When they go
shrink
in,
is
the
literally
thing is,
theft.
All those things are locked up, and they're not locked up because of what you're saying. They're locked up because of the crime.
They are locked up because they do want to prevent retail theft in general. That's the reason why they lock it up, because of course they don't want people to come in and steal shit, even if it's inconsequential to their even if it's inconsequential to their profit margins. They still don't want people to go in and in the chance that is easy to steal, they lock the shit up.
So you think the people of California en masse all got tricked by the right wing into thinking there was crime when there wasn't that much crime?
I think that people saw homelessness and diminishing material conditions for a lot of working class Californians and it's not an accident that like blue areas and blue cities are significantly more like swinging to the right than red cities were, or red states were in general. They saw homelessness directly caused by the housing market being completely unsustainable, and they attributed that to an increase of violent crime happening everywhere and it being bedlam when the data doesn't show that reality at all. And to make up for that massive gap in the data, by saying, oh, people are simply not reporting crimes when we're talking
but I'm
about.
telling you, the data does back it up. I've proven it overwhelmingly.
I don't know.
And then on top of that, there's another mountain of unreported crime. But I don't even need the unreported crime. The crime went up. Look.
I don't know where your data is coming from.
Public Policy Institute of California. So you could look it up. Crime on the cars, 43% on auto theft over the last 4 years, 52% on car parts, and you keep telling them it didn't happen when their catalytic converter got stolen. They know it happened. Now let's go to homelessness. So that's again like the trans ad at the end of the campaign. It's in my opinion, it's a combination.
The Public Policy Institute of California, is that what you're talking about? Is that where you got this information from?
Yeah.
That California's violent crime rate rose somewhat in 2023 and remains above pre-pandemic levels. This is what you're talking about, right?
So look, keep going down. You see,
okay.
Right? So
California's overall violent crime rate by 1.7 increased by 1.7 from 495 crimes in 2020 to 503 in 2023.
Yep.
Like the rest of the nation, California saw a jump in violent crime in the first year of the pandemic. The state's violent crime rate is still up by 15.4% compared to 2019. This is what you're talking about.
Exactly what I said. 15% since 2019.
Okay.
And then you see violent crime, you see homicide, you see home burglaries go down, but commercial burglaries go up.
This is from 2023.
So they're saying the 2023 numbers are better. That's why I've been saying throughout the 2023 numbers are better, right? But what they're saying is when
No,
you
you
look
mean
at
2024 numbers are better.
the recent numbers,
Yeah, the
right?
latest numbers.
The
are,
latest numbers they're saying anyway.
Yes.
So the last 4 years, though, when you look at pre-pandemic to now, all the numbers are much worse.
Okay.
Oh, no, not all the numbers. Almost all the numbers. So when you go to homelessness,
I don't think this is just from Oakland. This is across the board, chat.
That's California.
Yeah, this is California. They're saying they adjusted it to the Oakland Police Department incomplete reporting.
Yeah, look, you can make all the excuses you want, okay, but those are real
No,
numbers.
I'm
not addressing to you. I'm addressing to whoever said that.
Yes.
Okay, so look, now when you turn to homelessness, again, we have, in my opinion, the corporate left. There is no corporate left. The corporate Democrats, right, and they, what I would call the extreme left, get together. And so you're absolutely right. Gavin Newsom wants to protect his real estate donors who are among his top 2 donors, right? He wants housing prices to keep going up because the real estate guys get paid off of that. Number 2, he wants to has a ton of donors that they dole out and allies that they dole out money to nonprofit groups. They dole out money to, we're going to buy that place and we're going to turn it into housing for the homeless. Except they never turn it into housing for the homeless. They just pay 3 times as much to buy the property.
Can I say something?
All of that stuff is true, but 2 things can be true at the same time. At the same time, on the city council level, when in LA and San Francisco and Oakland, when anybody went to say, hey, listen, I don't think we should have people shooting up in public. I don't think we should do the local meth market in the middle of town.
Okay.
The extreme left would show up, the political activists. They literally threw a brick at London Breed. They thought she wasn't extreme enough. And they're like, no, liberty for the homeless. And they're like weirdo libertarians pretending to be on the left. And so they're saying, no, we should do nothing. Nothing. They have a freedom to stay on the streets.
We don't care about this. We're looking at the data. Data is more important than whatever people are saying, okay? What you're doing in this circumstance, when you look at the data here, okay, I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to open this image in a new tab, and I'm going to zoom in, okay? What you're doing in this situation is basically looking at just this portion.
Because that is what the voters look at when they're going into this
and not
election.
looking at, I know, but you're not looking at the overall trends of crime.
I know, but I've pointed that out 1,000 times.
I know, but
that trend that happened in the 1990s has nothing to do with the trend since
it's
2020.
It's not just 1990s. Like
it's since 1960.
Since 2000, okay, crime has noticeably decreased and continues
but no one
to do
disagrees
so.
with that, Haas.
Okay. So when you say there's a blip and what we have to do is basically engage in even more rigorous enforcement in a state that has literally by the Supreme Court in the past been told to reduce the number of people that are in their prison system because the prisons are filled to the brim with a bunch of nonviolent offenders with no indication that they're going to reoffend,
But that's not what has happened at all.
Saying that
these are recidivists, Haas. That's why Prop 36 fixes the problem of recidivism. If you've done it 3 times, brother, you're a recidivist.
See, this is where we totally completely disagree with one another. If you think that like the 3 strikes rule in any sort of implementation of like
it goes from misdemeanor to felony, absolutely more aggressive
prosecution and more draconian punishments being implemented are a demonstrable failure universally. That's the reason why America has a higher rate of recidivism than all of the other comparable OECD nations that have significantly more tolerant approaches and significantly better solutions in terms of identifying why crime happens, which is poverty.
You're conflating 2 different issues.
I'm not.
America's prison system is awful. It needs massive reform. There's no reason for us to have this brutal, stupid system. It contributes to a lot of the problems that we're having. But at the same time, when when you say, hey, if you do this 3 times, 4 times, 8 times, 9 times, I'm still going to keep it a misdemeanor. That doesn't have anything to do with the state of our prisons. I'm not telling
Yes,
you
it
to.
does.
No, hold on. I'm not
That's the
telling
reason why they're
hold
doing
on.
it.
I'm not telling you to beat those guys. I'm not telling you to torture those guys. I'm not telling you to put them in jail for the rest of their lives. This is not 3 strikes and you're out. This is 3 strikes and it's a felony, brother. It's a felony. You're saying 18 strikes. That motherfucker goes into the store, robs it 18 times, and you're still going to call it a misdemeanor?
Do you agree with the crime bill now of Joe Biden, the architect of the crime bill, like crime control bill? That was a successful method.
So that is a complicated calculus, because back then what they would do is they would say, and this is what I hated, and this is the criminal justice reform that I wanted, which is, oh, you smoked marijuana. That's it. We're putting you in prison for 20 years. What the? No, I don't agree on marijuana.
That's not what I asked. That's not what I asked.
No, but you're asking me a bill that has all these different parts. Some parts I agree with, and some parts I don't agree with.
I'm asking you a very specific component of the bill, 3 strikes law, which means that if
3 strikes and you're out forever. No, I don't agree with that.
Okay. So, but you do agree.
That's a life sentence. Okay. I'm not saying that. This is 3 strikes
but you do
and it's
agree
a felony.
But you do agree in adding more aggressive, adding like a felony attachment
more aggressive
to
punishment.
Okay,
not brutal punishment, not
Listen,
weirdo torture punishment, but normal aggressive punishment.
Okay,
to
why
recidivists.
why don't you agree with the 3 strikes law on principle?
Because it's too draconian and it doesn't match proportionally the crime. Because your 3rd strike, like happened in Louisiana, was a guy who stole a slice of pizza, got a life sentence. No, that's disproportionate. When you smoke marijuana and they give you a life sentence or 20 years or 10 years or even 1 day, that's disproportionate.
So for you, it's $900.
So we want a criminal justice reform to bring us back into moderation, not to bring it back to a different extreme, the opposite extreme.
Okay. So petty theft being considered a felony is something that you're on board with, as long as it's not just like a slice of pizza.
No, as long as you're doing it over and over again. So if somebody goes and steals something, they're a kid, they're 14, do I want that to haunt them the rest of their lives? No, I don't. Okay. But somebody's 27 and they've now committed 8 robberies of stuff that's $850. And if you let him out, you're an idiot, you're a schmuck, and he should come to your house and rob that house over and over and over again, because you're saying, I'm cool with it. And I'm not cool with it. You do it 3 times, that means you're a fucking criminal. This was not an accident. You did it on purpose. And I'm not saying throw the book at you. I'm just saying it's obviously a felony. If you can't understand that that's the moderate position, then you're out of step with the voters.
Okay. So the reason why I have a different approach to this than you, I think, is because I understand the state of the California prison structure, and I understand that California already has some pretty fucking awful and draconian punishments that they implement. And that is the disagreement here. I understand that the crime apprehension method, the best possible way to reduce crime, is by improving some of the most consequential aspects that cause people to go and do crime. I don't think that people do crime because they're like evil people. I think they do it because in the overwhelming majority of circumstances, they are a victim of their material conditions. They're a victim of circumstance.
No, you're going too far.
Wait, what do you mean?
So does poverty contribute to crime? Of course it does.
Okay.
So when the right wing says, oh, no, it's just like evil, demon-possessed people and their socioeconomic condition has nothing to do with it, that's absurd. Of course, poverty causes crime to some degree. But you're taking a macro issue and applying it to a micro case. So when the guy goes in and hits a woman in the face with a brick, that's not because his material conditions were problematic. That guy's got mental issues, okay? And so and you got to lock that guy up, or he's going to hit another woman in the face with a brick, right? So you can't take the macro. You should address both of those things. The way you address the macro issues, bring down poverty, create better prison system like Norway does. It reduces recidivism greatly. It gets you to a better result. So you should do all those things that I agree with you on, but you should also say, no, on an individual level, if you keep committing crime, I don't think it's because you're an angel that just got misdirected and you're Jean Valjean and you stole a loaf of bread because your sister's kid needed it. No, you're a guy who thinks I can get away with crime, so I'm going to do more crime. If you think that doesn't exist, you're in La La Land. Of course, people are human. They respond to incentives and disincentives. And when you say there's now no punishment, in effect. It's not real. Misdemeanor is real punishment, but unfortunately, because it gets pled down to almost nothing, it becomes in effect no punishment. Of course, normal human beings are going to react by going, okay, I guess it's illegal to steal now.
Okay, but since I thought we established this basis that in terms of retail theft being you're pairing up numbers that don't actually add up to a hyper specific anecdote of a serial criminal that you've made up in your mind. You're making
I'm not
it
making
seem
it up.
as,
It's in the numbers.
No, it's not in the numbers because we disagree. I think the broader the broader scope of this analysis requires you to look at the actual ways in which retail theft is occurring and what is the actual contributor to the problem.
A huge percentage of the crime is committed by recidivists. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but you guys could look it up.
No,
So
but in the
my
grand scheme
point
of things,
is-
it's not one. There's no world in which one singular person is responsible, or 1,000 people are responsible for the brunt of
When
the
you
overwhelming
say-
majority of shrink,
when you
overwhelming
say-
majority of retail theft.
When you say, Haas, that there's almost no consequences for theft under $1,000, you will get more people stealing under $1,000. That's the most obvious thing in the world, and that's exactly what happened. So you
No, that's not what happened.
You keep pointing out a different problem, and I'm telling you, yeah, that's also true. That's
No,
also true.
that's not what
but
happened.
Did
We-
crime
you
go
and
up?
I-
Yes.
you and I are-
So you're saying that if there's no 3 strikes on moving into a felony, that it's not going to affect people at all. Are you actually saying that?
There is no world in which people are actually contributing to the retail theft in a meaningful fashion because they're constantly going back and stealing.
You keep going back to retail theft. How about the catalytic converters?
Okay.
How about property crime? How about auto theft?
Fine. The reason why I'm using retail theft as an example is because you use it as an example.
But
and
all
it's
these
one
examples
area
are the same thing.
And,
They're
and
all
it's
going
one
up
area that I actually
because
have.
we're not punishing it.
It's one area where I have
Should we
actually
punish
looked
it?
into the data. That's the reason why
Should
I'm
we punish
using
it,
retail
or
theft.
should we say, "Oh, those poor angels"?
Crime already gets punished. That's the whole point. That's what
But
I'm
a
saying.
misdemeanor is basically not punishing.
No, that's not true. The idea that like criminals are not being punished at all in the state of California
because of
is a
cash
ridiculous
bail.
lie.
No, but Haas, you're literally wrong here, factually incorrect. When you have no cash bail, combined with lowering felonies to misdemeanors, what it does is it says this is a misdemeanor. I cannot keep you in prison. There is no cash bail, so you're free to go. Okay. So
Because-
then that says to the average guy who's not a rocket scientist, because that's how he wound up stealing shit from CVS. Oh, I just stole from CVS, or I just stole your catalytic converter and they let me out. So that means I should do it again and do it again and do it again. So Haas, are you saying if they do it 400 times, you're still going to call it a misdemeanor?
They're not going to do it 400 times. What are you talking
do.
about?
They
That's
have
insane.
criminal gangs who do
if
it.
someone was literally going in and stealing something 400 times in a row, it would not be a fucking blip on the actual broader billions of dollars that are increased
So
in
there is no
shrink.
recidivism.
No, it's ridiculous.
Recidivism is the majority of crime.
I know
Repeat
recidivism is the majority of
offenders are
crime.
the majority
Why
of
is
crime.
it that? Why is it the states
Why
with
can't
better?
I draw a line
Why
on
is it
repeat
that
offenders?
because you're not addressing the problem. When you say these are repeat offenders, we have to fucking bring the law down when we already
A
do.
felony.
When we already do bring the law down on these
No, we
people.
don't. We
Yes,
literally
we
don't.
do.
A
You live in
misdemeanor gets pled down
You're
to
talking
nothing.
about a state that has some of the highest percentage of incarcerated in comparison to the rest of the fucking planet, and you're making it seem as though California is letting criminals roam free.
But
it's
they
just
did.
a
They
falsehood.
literally, Gavin Newsom let out tons of criminals, and then he said, "Oh, I'm saving $150 million."
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up. You, in the past, falsely said that Gavin Newsom is letting 75,000 prisoners roam the streets. Okay,
Tell me how much he released from the prisons.
Do you
He's
know?
like Bane from
Okay,
like Batman.
Do you know the structure in which this prisoner release program works? Do you think that it just means like, oh, you're a rapist? Go ahead, be free.
I never said that.
Okay, you're a thief.
No,
go ahead, be free.
No, they're saying, hey, you have not served your time, but Gavin Newsom would like to save more money so he can give more of it to his donors. So
Great.
we're going to let you out of
Great.
prison, even though you didn't serve your time.
That's how it happened? No, that's not how it happened. Okay. They looked at people with less likelihood to reoffend, and they actually still went through the same exact process that you normally go through in a state where
They changed the law.
The penalties.
It can't be the same process if they change the law.
No, the process is still the same. They just shortened the sentences in a state where sentences are already so fucking long. We're talking about people who were going to spend 30 years in prison, and they've spent 20
why were they going to spend 30 years in prison?
Spent 20
why
years.
were they going to spend 30 years? Because they stole pizza? No, because they committed rape or murder.
No, just listen. I'm using 30 as a number. I'm giving you 30. It could be 5 years in prison. Okay. They were going to spend 5 years in prison. They've spent 3 already. So now they've actually put them in front of a parole board ahead of time instead of serving out the 5 years of their prison sentence.
That's right. And they're letting them go too early. That's right. I think they should serve their sentences.
They should serve 5 years in prison. You think the extra 2 years?
You know what the hell they got the 5 years for?
The extra,
look, guys, you can steal.
I do know. As a matter of fact, I do know.
Ad infinitum and not get a felony. A felony is 1 year or higher. To get a 5-year sentence is significant.
Okay.
And you think they all did nothing? They were all Jean Valjean, and we're just releasing them.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they're Jean Valjean. Their capacity to reoffend is not going to change dramatically between the fucking 3 years that they're being let out if the parole board finds them eligible and analyzes their capacity to reoffend in the process.
In
if you
a new
think that
law
those people,
where they say, but you should let them out.
No, that's not true. You're wrong. This is Fox News shit. That's why I'm so frustrated with this conversation.
Are they out or are they not out, Haas? Did they change the law or did they not change the law?
Because that means that
they changed the law and now they're out.
Yeah,
what part of that is complicated?
Because that means that there's a shit ton of people that actually have been found by the exact same parole boards with no capacity to reoffend in their analysis that have actually been let out early, and they shouldn't have been in prison for that long to begin with. That's my point. If you think that,
so they literally let out criminals that you think should be let out, even though you don't know any of their cases.
Because I don't believe in the idea that there is a major difference between someone serving a 5-year sentence and a 3-year sentence.
So you think all the sentences should be lower, which creates a disincentive. Which creates an incentive for more crime.
If that was the case, then there would be significantly more crime in every other country on the planet than the United States of America.
No, their system is entirely different. You're
why
talking
is it
about
entirely
one
different?
portion of their system when their system is 100% different than ours. If you said to me, let's go to the Norwegian model, I'd say yes in a second.
Okay.
And that
but you're pushing the country in your as a massive progressive online commentator, you're pushing in the exact opposite direction.
I don't want crime.
I'm saying
yes, I am.
But it's not a deterrence. It's not a real deterrence. It's demonstrably unsuccessful.
Except for the fact that it was, and the numbers went up, and
Wait,
the
what?
voters
No,
agree with me.
No,
and
the voters agreeing with you doesn't matter. We're looking at the actual. We're looking
so
at.
You think all the Democratic voters are wrong, even though the numbers prove that they are right?
Democratic voters voted for
recidivism. Repeat offenders are no big deal.
Democratic voters in the primary process voted for Joe Biden. Democratic voters voted in the primary process for Joe Biden. Do you think that the country would be worse off without Medicare for all or not?
So Haas, there is both of those. We talked about this already. Both the reality and the narrative have an effect. Okay. So sometimes the narrative that is wrong pushes things over the edge and makes a difference. And so that's why the Joe Bidens of the world win, because they have overwhelming propaganda in the primaries. In this case,
but you don't think there's overwhelming propaganda in terms of being...
Let me finish. In this case, you're saying, oh, it's the same kind of propaganda, right?
Yes.
It doesn't actually exist, but we their minds, and then they think that it exists when it's poor people who just are innocent and angels, and they didn't do anything wrong. But all the people in the Democratic Party in California, let alone the Republicans, all got brainwashed into thinking that there's real crime when there isn't. But you're wrong on the facts. So both things are true.
I'm not wrong on the facts. I'm not. You, like, the reason why we hyper focus on retail theft is specifically because it is one that I have, like, extensively done research on. Okay. That's the reason. I'm sure if I were to look at all the other data that you're giving me, that I could probably figure out exactly what's going on and the way that data is massaged as well. Okay. But having said that, I fundamentally, on first principles, disagree with you that the solution to crime is more prisons, more jail, more locking up people, and the proof is the American system.
It's not binary, Haas. It's not either more prisons or less prisons, shittier prisons or nicer prisons. It's what it depends. What are we doing?
It depends.
Is it a misdemeanor?
It depends
or
at
is it
the
a
end of the
felony?
day.
Is it smoking
No,
marijuana,
it
or is it
depends.
doing meth in
No,
public
it-
next to high school kids and junior high school kids?
It depends on the material conditions, Jank. That's it. It depends on social safety nets. That is what it depends on more than anything else. And you and I agree on this. And it saddens me to see that you have like given up hope, understandably, that we will ever solve the underlying material problems. So now you're just trying to burn the candle on the other end.
You can do both.
No.
Just because, first of all, you're not even doing either. So we're not changing any of the material conditions. The corporate Democrats and the corporate Republicans have fucked us all, right? All they do is funnel money to the rich and to the corporations. We agree on that. So we're not actually fixing any of the fundamental problems. But in the meanwhile, since we haven't fixed the fundamental problems, crime has risen. And your response to that is, maybe we'll fix the underlying problems decades from now. But in the meanwhile, I'm going to let the guy out. And I'm saying, in the meanwhile, I am not going to let the guy out.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that our prison structure and the way that we look at crime in America, culturally speaking, and in the way that we have written legislation is far more draconian. We're the #1 country for incarceration on this planet. It's worse than China. It's worse than Russia. Okay? That is a fact. That is an objective fact. You are looking at a system where America is 4% of the entire globe's population, but houses 25% of the entire globe's incarcerated population, and saying we need more of that. I'm saying this is a demonstrable failure, and what we have to do is fix the underlying material problems, specifically problems that contribute to homelessness. That is the most impactful way that many Americans think that there is like an unimaginable amount of crime that is occurring, including but not limited to some of the crimes that you're mentioning in terms of like stealing catalytic converters and shit. Okay.
Is there a number? Is there a number of repeat offenses at which you would move it from a misdemeanor to a felony? Or would you keep it at a misdemeanor if they, no matter how many catalytic converters they stole, no matter how many watches they stole, no matter whatever the numbers
I think
are,
this should
you
be
don't care.
I think it should be.
Is there a line for
I think
repeat
it should
offenses?
be, as is the case with no cash bail, it should be individually determined in terms of the capacity to reoffend by a judge, which is what is going on with cash bail. Cash bail does not mean that like, oh, you did a rape or you did a murder and now you're allowed to fucking roam the streets.
There's cash bail for felonies. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why the felony misdemeanor distinction is so important. So if you go to the extreme right wing position where they say things like, oh, they're letting all the criminals out. That's not true. There is no penalty. No, that's not true. It's a misdemeanor. So you have to actually base it on what we're talking about here. So yeah, the judge has discretion in certain cases, but
Yes.
now in certain cases they're taking that discretion away. And in a sense, I say give it back to them because now
I think that judges should maintain discretion in terms of someone's capacity to be, a capacity to reoffend in the process of the criminal trial that's being conducted. That is the whole point. The reason why
But you were taking discretion away when you said you cannot charge them for a felony if it's under $950, period. No matter how many times they do it, you cannot charge them as a felony. And what I'm saying is, no, you should be able to charge them as a felony. And as a blanket rule, I don't mind the number 3. If you've done it 3 times, it wasn't an accident.
the reason why you and I have a disagreement over whether or not this is as pressing of a problem is because I think you're being primed by what you are seeing around you and factoring all of that in together to say crime is completely out of control,
you think
especially
I'm
when it comes to
imagining
theft.
it, and I think you're
No,
crazy.
the reason why I'm saying that is because, and I brought up the Texas example already, like in the state of Texas, in order for a theft to be considered a felony, it needs to be $2,500. Do you think that Texas does not prosecute? Do you think Texas has a wokeness in their criminal justice problem? That is a significantly higher number than
and
the
how
state
do
of
they
California.
treat repeat offenders?
That is, I don't know how they treat repeat offenders in comparison to California, but I assume that it is fairly comparable to the California structure, especially considering that the felony, the felony part of that, the number for what constitutes a felony is $2,300 or something. Is either $2,300 or $2,500. So
Here,
clearly,
I would do this. I don't want to do this experiment on the people of Texas, but if we did an experiment, and I say it's both, it's the narrative and the reality. So the reality in Texas is what you're saying is that it's up to 2,300 or so, that it's a misdemeanor. If we went and publicized at a national level, hey, you know what? In Texas, it's a misdemeanor. But again, there's differences here because they might not have no cash bail. So then those guys do get arrested and they stay in prison until their trial, so they don't get to repeat offend over and over again. But even so, if you publicize that you're going to get a misdemeanor instead of a felony, I bet you that the crime in Texas would go up, because a lot of people would go, oh, misdemeanors usually gets pled down to nothing. Misdemeanor is not as big a deal. I'm much less likely to go to prison under a misdemeanor. I'll go steal more in Texas. I think the crime would go up. You think the crime would not go up if that was a well-publicized fact?
So you're saying that it's because the media hasn't covered Texas's felony distinction up until
You
this
were
moment.
saying that. You were saying the narrative makes the difference.
No, I'm saying that narrative doesn't contribute to the material reality one way or another in a way, in a more meaningful way than like people feeling the consequences of not being able to fucking make rent, or not having the same job attainment, not having the same fucking living wages that they're supposed to be getting when wages are outpacing, or when inflation is outpacing wages.
You're making a macro micro difference.
No,
man.
it's
That
not
guy, the guy who's doing the theft is not some sort of angel in your macro world that if he was
it's not.
rich,
I'm not saying he's an angel.
That.
I'm not saying he's an angel. I'm not making the difference between you and I think, in this conversation is that you're applying some semblance of like morality to the action. I'm not. I'm saying human beings are immediately reacting to their material circumstances. I'm not ascribing a moral value to that because I want to solve the problem. And I think moralizing the ways in which like people steal. Some people steal for honorable reasons like Jean Valjean, and other people steal for bad reasons because they want to be bad, is silly. I look at the data, I look at the actual problem, and I want to solve the problem. And I think moralizing or trying to dive in, and yes, and trying to dive into the mind of like one criminal over the other is actually silly. And that's not how legislation is written anyway, because if you were to write legislation that way, when people do
that's how we're built.
When people do write legislation that way, you arrive at a whole bunch of things that you disagree with as well, like in the crime control bill. You arrive at people being like, well, those evil people are smoking marijuana and marijuana kills, and that's why they have to be locked up in prison forever. That's how we arrived at 25% of the entire incarcerated population of the planet being incarcerated in the United States of America.
So look, I attribute both things. The incentives and disincentives matter. So if you say, hey, there's going to be less punishment for something, you will get more of that thing. If you say there's going to be more punishment of a thing, you will get less of that thing. If you disagree with that, you're literally disagreeing with human nature. Then on the moral component, which is a separate factor, on that factor, crime is literally us as a society saying we find that to be immoral and unacceptable. You are not allowed to do that. You are not allowed to take from that guy when you didn't earn it. That is an immoral act, and it is an illegal act. That is literally what crime is. You're not allowed to rape that woman just because you wanted it. It is illegal and immoral. You cannot go into his house and take his shit. That is immoral and illegal. By definition, crime is about morality. Then the question is, where do we draw the lines on what we think is right and wrong? And what I'm saying to you is, I'm drawing them in a different place than you are. I'm drawing them in a place where the great majority of Americans are. And I'm drawing them in a place where I say, let's go solve those macro issues that you and I agree on so that there's less crime overall, and let's do it right.
Okay.
But in the meanwhile, yes, I am saying you are not allowed to. It is immoral to smash a woman's face with a brick, to smear shit on a woman's face, things that people literally walked on in New York. It's a misdemeanor now. You walk, no cash bail, you walk. And people got sick of people walking, and that's why you lost California in spectacular fashion. That is exactly as I predicted. 36 passed with 70% of the vote.
Okay. I don't agree that people who engage in violent felony assault should be able to immediately
Is it a morality
walk
issue?
away. It's like in terms of letting that person walk away, you are constantly in greater danger to society. I don't agree with that.
So it is immoral.
Yes, I think that.
So crime is a morality
Yes,
issue.
but when you are legislating, or when you are actually trying to figure out a way to reduce the number of crime, you can't just sit there and be like, well, that's immoral. Then, okay, then kill that person. We should kill that person.
No, you're going to an extreme.
No, I'm not going to an extreme. You're going to an extreme.
I literally told you earlier. What was my rule? What was the rule I said? It has to be
using your
proportional.
argument and
No, it's
moving it to a
proportional.
logical conclusion, which is we should
I
lock
don't love
away that person.
extremists.
We should lock away that person permanently because that person has done a crime. That's what happens
not
when
logical at all.
That's what happens when you moralize.
The punishment no, you don't. Punishment has to be appropriate and proportional to the crime. So it is not a moral position to say you stole a slice of pizza, so I'm going to take your freedom away forever. That is not a moral position. But it's also not a moral position to say you can steal any fucking pizza you like. So what's the right answer? The right answer in that case is a misdemeanor. Sometimes misdemeanors make sense.
Okay, but here's the thing. We already have rules in the books that have clearly not contributed to fixing this problem. And I'm not saying that the solution is to just abolish the principle of crime, right? I'm not saying that at all. I'm simply stating that, well, come on, Cenk.
Okay.
Of
course you're not saying that.
My anger and my frustration is that we keep looking at wrong solutions and moving away from the actual, like, genuinely successful solutions in reducing the number of crimes that happen, whether it be property theft or whether it be any sort of violent crimes at all. And the example is out there in every other OECD nation. And instead of looking at that and going, this is in the direction that we need to move in, which is something that you do when it comes to Medicare for all. It's something that you do for socialized medicine, but it's for some weird reason not a thing that you factor in when it comes to the actual.
Except I do.
When it comes to the actual issue of crime.
I've said like 8 times I do, and I want to go towards their system, but we don't have that holistic system. We don't have the safety
It's not even
net.
holistic.
We don't have any of that.
I know.
We don't have the right prisons. So give me a bill that fixes our prisons, and I'll say yes. Give me a bill that reforms police training, and I'll say yes. Give me a bill that says let's spend more money on mental health, and I'll say yes. But if you just give me a bill that says let's let the criminals go, I say no. Okay, felonies after 3 strikes, easy. Everyone, the overwhelming majority of the voters agree, and they are right.
By the way,
let's keep going. Let's go to the next thing.
The 3-strike misdemeanor conversation that is like the conversation of like taking 3 strikes and turning it automatically into a felony does actually put a 3 pizza slice guy in prison, just so you know.
Yeah, it does. It puts him in prison for a year. A felony is a year or more.
Okay, so if someone steals 3 slices of pizza a year.
No, 3 different instances.
Yeah, in 3 different instances.
Yeah, they are a repeat offender. You're giving the most extreme, lowest example you could find. I can give you 3. A guy smashes into a jewelry store, takes a $900 watch. He does it 340 times in a year, and you still say a felony. Okay, so we both have extreme examples. And I'm saying,
that's fine.
If you go and break the law 3 different times on purpose, goddamn right it's a felony.
Okay, here's why I think you and I will never see the world in the same way. I would rather have the jewelry guy go free if that means the 3 pizza slice also gets to go free.
Yeah, we disagree.
Yeah, I think 100% I stand on that.
And good news is we just had an election about it. And it got decided. So
I think
the voters said, we agree with Cenk. We're not willing to let you rob every place blind because you're worried about the 3 pizza guy.
Yeah, and the reason why I disagree with you on this is because, and it's something that you agree with me on as well, that's not even the solution to the problem. The solution to the problem
part of the solution.
The solution to the problem would be, food banks, and the solution to the jewelry theft guy.
But the food bank is not going to solve the repeat offender guy. That guy's out of control. So the repeat offenders are totally out of control.
The guy who's stealing 3 pizzas is
you're taking the lowest possible example.
and you're taking the maximum possible example. And I'm telling you,
in that range, in that spectrum from the lowest to the highest. Yes, I am perfectly comfortable with
but that's not how the law works. When you do the 3 strikes,
you're doing it on purpose. You're a fucking criminal, and you like to rob other people's shit.
Okay.
Yes, you go to prison.
Hold on. By numbers, what kind of crime do you think is going to happen more commonly in this process, or has been happening? The guy who's stealing pizzas and 3 slices, and now he has to go to prison for a year, or the jewelry theft?
Oh, so my guess is, first of all, we're both guessing. And the more common thing of just going into a store and stealing whatever you want is way higher, way higher than the guy who's like, oh, I'm so hungry. I just need 1 slice of pizza. By the way, go outside a pizza shop in California, anywhere in California, like San Francisco, etc. Hey, say, hey, brother, I don't want money. Can you buy me a slice of pizza? And that guy will buy you 8 slices of pizza. The next guy will buy you 8 slices.
That's not what we're talking about.
Nobody's going hungry. There's food kitchens.
That's not what we're talking about.
Soup kitchens. You can do all of that. So
I'm not talking about the morality behind like theft.
What is
I'm
more
saying,
common?
what's
The
more
guy
common?
who's hungry and stole the pizza, or the guy who's like, ah, shit, cool, free shit for
free shit.
free shit. Way more common. 10,000 times
the
more
guy
common.
who says, I want to steal, I want to go into Rite Aid and steal deodorant and shampoo or whatever, right?
Whatever.
What do you think is more common? The guy who's stealing deodorant, pizza, any number of different things, or the guy who's like facilitating a jewelry heist, a smash and grab at a jewelry store?
Now we're getting into such micro things, Hus. There's some gangs who do it on purpose. They realize, oh, there's a loophole here. We're going to exploit that loophole. And sometimes they'll even use kids because they'll even get lighter sentences, get off easier, etc. Then there's randos who do it because they heard on the news that it's basically...
You do realize why I'm asking this question. It's because when you write legislation, and I think you agree with this this principle, like when you like the abortion abortion restrictions, right? There's a reason why people say this should be left between a doctor and the patient, right? Because any kind of legislative hurdle that you put in place of this routine medical process by hyper focusing on like late term abortions or third trimester abortions, which is, 1% of abortions overall. And in every single circumstance, it's happening because there is like a serious threat to the carrier and not like a, fun abortion that someone is having after carrying the pregnancy for 9 months. The reason why we don't want to put a legislative hurdle in front of it is because a lot of people become victim in that process because of the legislative hurdles. And the same principle applies in criminal justice. When you are going in the direction of more stringent penalties and a more draconian implementation of the law, the pre-existing law, you are going to put a lot of people that even you yourself consider to be like innocent victims of material circumstance in prison and explode the prison population. The way to make up for that now is to not only just open up new state penitentiaries, but implement private prison facilities. And it contributes to the same cycle of violence and a lack of lowering the recidivism rate to begin with. So we're looking at a situation, and I feel like it's very reactionary thinking to look at like America's criminal justice system that you and I both agree is fundamentally fucking broken, and say we need more of that because there's not enough of it happening, when in fact it has nothing to do with the actual draconian ways in which we have rigorously applied the law, and everything to do with the underlying material circumstances. And in the absence of no one actually fixing the material circumstances, you're saying, well, in the process we should just like criminalize more shit. And I think
I'm not sure I understood what you're saying, but I'll address a couple of things. First of all, on the abortion analogy, I think that abortion should be illegal in the third trimester, but there should be, of course, an exception for the life and health of the mother that the doctor decides along with the mom. And if the Republicans say, no, that's too broad an exception, okay, we could have that debate. So, but I'm not sure how it relates to this. So, I'm not even in favor of like criminalizing abortions in the third trimester. I think that's fine. We disagree on that.
Yeah.
So, and again,
but do you understand why?
Happens,
but
the great majority of the American people agree with me on that.
Yeah. My job as someone with a perspective is to try to get other people to understand where I'm coming from on this issue, and I think I can try and communicate. I did as to why. Criminalizing third trimester abortions, which is an incredibly rare procedure to begin with.
It is incredibly rare.
It's an incredibly rare procedure to begin with, is only adding additional legal hurdles in an otherwise incredibly traumatic experience that the carrier is going through.
What
and
it's doing is
completely unnecessary.
It's making your position look extreme for no reason, when the great majority of the incredibly rare cases are a medical necessity. Almost all of them are a medical necessity. Once you put a medical necessity exception in, you're needlessly making your position look more extreme by saying you're allowed to abort up until the day of the delivery.
No, there's
That's
always
not a good
always going to be,
and it's also not correct.
No, it is.
I think
you cannot get a third trimester abortion that is not already an incredibly complicated medical procedure.
That's right, because
which
it's
is
illegal.
why no,
it is illegal.
No, it's not because it's illegal. There are states where there's no legal restrictions on third trimester abortions, but the reason why it is unnecessary and conciliatory to the Republican position that is born out of not real truth of the matter, but instead hysterical, made up hallucinations like women are getting fun abortions after carrying a pregnancy to almost term, is because you're adding an unnecessary legal hurdle on a complicated medical procedure that is automatically limited by its own complication.
If you do that policy, Haas, the Republicans
It already exists.
No, I get it. And by the way, and the Republicans do use that in debates.
So
and what
you're
it
saying
does
we
is it hurts
So you're saying-
abortion rights. It hurts abortion rights because what winds up happening is they go, oh, these sons of bitches want to abort right up until the day of the abortion, and that's why they're so extreme. Make sure you agree with us 6 weeks.
If
Wait, how the hell did we get to 6 weeks? Everybody already agrees to 24 weeks.
Yeah.
24 weeks is the correct standard. 24 weeks protects almost
know what they
all
say after
women,
that? You know what
and
they-
you to protect the women beyond
Now
that.
they say post-birth abortions. It's ridiculous, but they're going to keep repeating it.
But then when you have the correct position that the
gonna-
great majority of Americans agree with, you could easily beat back that
you
extreme
can't-
statement
no,
that they're making.
You cannot concede or cave or capitulate to right-wing framing, especially when it's not born out of the data or the reality of the matter. You're saying
I think it should be illegal.
They make people
in
look
the third
crazy.
trimester, but it should. I think it should be illegal in the third trimester.
Okay.
Why? Because I agree with you. It's exceptionally rare, and almost all the time, it's medical reasons, and people don't have abortions for fun.
Yeah.
But
especially at that point, because it's such a
I totally agree.
Such an invasive procedure to
I
actually
totally
conduct
agree.
that
Okay.
automatically limits the number of people that can
I
get
know.
it regardless.
But as a matter of law, should you be allowed to get an abortion because you chose to after the fetus is viable? And I think the answer is no. Once the fetus is viable, it's an independent human being, and you don't get to make that choice on your own without a consultation of a doctor saying, "Yeah, no, you're right. Your life is in danger."
fetus viability will improve with medical science as well. Does that mean that if in the future the fetus could be
I've always
viable
thought
outside
that.
of the womb,
Yeah,
in like
take it
the
out
first,
and you deal with it. Yeah, I think it's okay.
That's crazy.
You think it's so? You're saying if a fetus is viable and the pregnancy just got started,
Yeah.
and somebody says, "I'll take care of that baby,"
Do you understand the
say,
process?
No,
of
I don't want to.
Do you understand the process of taking it out? That is also an invasive medical
But you're
procedure.
saying in the future when it's possible. Of course, I'm not saying now.
But fetus viability can happen at what, like 6 months? Let's say a premature baby can exist outside in a vacuum. Like the fact that you have to still cut a woman up to be able to get that out is like,
I know, but we're not cutting her up, Haas. We're just saying you have to finish the pregnancy.
No, I fundamentally disagree with you on this.
Okay, no problem. We'll disagree.
I'm just letting you
in
know.
the third trimester. By the way, my standard is the Roe standard, right? You're going beyond Roe. Roe said illegal in the third trimester.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't like my
so
statement
you're
is
going
my
past
statement
Roe,
is
and I'm saying
no.
Roe's-
Roe applies a minimum standard. That's the most important. That's the most consequential aspect of Roe is that there is a minimum standard that states cannot go beyond, and I think that it's valid to have a minimum standard as a federally protected a mandate when there are plenty of states, as we saw, that already had automatic trigger laws that would implement if Roe v. Wade was overturned. As long as there's a minimum standard, then that's good. I would go so far as to say that there should be no legal hurdles whatsoever, especially considering that the third trimester abortions, as you and I both agree, is not like a fun abortion, especially because the process in which you're the process in which you're getting to a third trimester is already laborious to begin with.
So strategically, I bet we have a disagreement here. When I look at the abortion issue as an example, Republicans say that it should be either 0 weeks or 6 weeks where the woman loses her rights, right? Loosely speaking, the right wing says that. You're saying the entire 9 months it should be up to the woman, and I'm saying 24 weeks. So now the majority of Americans think 24 weeks. But if we go with your 9 month strategy, House, what I'm worried about is that we're going to wind up at 15 weeks instead of 24 weeks because the Republicans are going to say, look at how extreme they are. Look at how extreme they are. They're saying that you should be able to, whether they do or they don't.
Regardless
you should
of the
be
majority
able
position,
to-
the Republicans did undermine the democratic process. I think you and I are aware of that, right?
What do you mean by that?
Like, regardless of how good of an argument that the Democrats could have presented on this issue, the Republicans still went in. What did they do? They used the Federalist Society over the course of 45 years and basically, beefed up the ranks of the Supreme Court and actually did undermine public opinion on this matter, the democratic principle on this matter.
I don't agree with any of that. They took over the Supreme Court, but they didn't do it in an undemocratic way. They won elections. The only thing that was undemocratic and wrong as a matter of process
the Supreme
was Merrick
Court is an
Garland.
inherently undemocratic. The Supreme Court is an undemocratic institution.
With the Supreme Court. No, I don't agree with that. But the Supreme Court has done massive damage, and it's because the right wing did put in activist judges, etc. But in terms of, and I think Roe v. Wade was decided wrong. But as a matter of law, I would adopt Roe v. Wade immediately. And we would win on that issue.
The three appointments.
You're going to drive them to go to 15 weeks.
The three
weeks
appointments
or 6
in the
weeks.
Supreme Court lied to the American public in congressional hearings deliberately, calling Roe v. Wade a super precedent, implying that the democratic wishes of the American population.
Oh, everybody knew they were fucking liars.
Yeah,
other than the
I know,
senators
but
and
there's a
mainstream
reason why
media.
they did that. Is because that's inherently corrupt and inherently undemocratic. The Supreme Court as a function is not democratic.
If you believe a right-wing Supreme Court candidate, when they say they're going to call balls and strikes, you're a moron.
Yeah, I don't. I never
Okay,
did. But my
right.
point is that it is a fundamentally undemocratic institution. On its fundamentals, the Supreme Court is an undemocratic institution.
Now we're debating the Supreme Court. That's too long a debate, brother.
Okay, but I
you need checks and balances. You need a judiciary. If you want to structure the Electoral College differently, yes.
By
If you want to
design.
structure the Supreme Court in a different way, I'm here happy to hear suggestions, but those obviously aren't realistic.
okay.
The Electoral College is way more realistic, and we should definitely get rid of it. I'm just using it as an example. But this redoing the Supreme Court is totally unrealistic.
What upsets me about how things have turned out in the last decade or so is that as your nephew and a fan of your commentary, I think you have in some instances basically lost the enthusiasm to continue putting up a fight against Republican framing and have decided that the democratic wishes, and I don't know if this is your own personal perspective has changed over time, but I feel like we are fundamentally at odds if there is any sort of real reason, if you think that there's any sort of validity to right-wing framing on issues, I don't think so.
Okay, so now that's your perspective, and everybody lives in different bubbles. Now let me tell you my perspective and how I view it, right? First of all, you can go back 20 years. We're on tape on all these issues. I haven't changed any of my positions. I said the same exact thing about abortion, same exact thing about crime, same exact thing about everything. So there is no turn. There is no right wing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no agreeing to right wing framing. The right wing framing of post-birth abortions is lunatic framing. There is no such thing that's called murder. We beat back all the Republican framing on all of these issues.
It's lunatic framing that you are willing to concede to, though.
I'm not conceding to it, Oz. You're making that up.
When you say third trimester abortions, there should be legal penalties for people that get third trimester abortions if they're having it for fun without any sort of medical
but I didn't
necessity.
say for fun. And so you're
didn't
saying
say
that
that,
the
but you're
Supreme
saying
Court
that the
in Roe v.
Republicans
Wade
look-
was agreeing to right-wing framing when they said that abortion should be legal for the first 2 trimesters? That was right-wing framing? No, that was what we wanted.
Abortion should be legal for the first 2 trimesters is reasonable protection at the federal level. That stops red states from actually implementing worse penalties.
Let me get to my perspective. In my perspective, what you guys are doing is both, number one, I don't agree with it on the substance of it and have never agreed to it on the substance of it. Number two, most importantly, I disagree with your strategy. Your strategy appears to be take the most extreme left-wing position and defend that hill forever and ever and ever. And what that does, in my opinion, is it gets the average American, the moderate and independent, to think, oh, all of the left, all of the Democrats are super extreme. They take the extreme position on every single issue. And it's a position we do not agree with as the average American. We don't agree with you on an extreme position on crime, on abortion, on all these things. And then what you do when you make that strategic mistake is that empowers the right wing to say, you see how extreme and wrong they are. That's why abortion should be 6 weeks and not 24 weeks, or 15 weeks, not 24 weeks. That's why we should that we should go back to the bad old days where we punish people for smoking marijuana. That's you encourage every part of their worst instincts and get people to believe that instead of them being extreme, we're extreme. When in reality, on almost all issues, the right wing in my lifetime, especially the Republican Party, has been so much more extreme than the left has. But you guys have ceded that ground and raised your hand and said, yes, we're the most extreme. Please, we're the extremists, right?
I think that's a terrible strategy. I think attributing the right-wing domination over the American political sphere to the left going too woke or too extreme is silly. You and I have a disagreement in dealing with these issues when they come up. I think the Democratic Party should be closer to the Republican Party in the way that they engage with politics, not on policy, but in the way that they engage with politics. If the Democratic Party frames the Republicans in a certain way, right, that makes them look bad, they never turn around and go, you know what, you're right, actually. I'm so sorry. I'm going to cave to you. You're right. I'm so sorry. You said we're Nazis.
To them. They're my positions.
You're okay. Well, regardless, on principle, this is at the heart of the problem that I have with the Democratic Party is that instead of saying this shit's a distraction, shut the fuck up, here's what we're going to be implementing. If you want to fight against that, then you can go so far as to do so. If you want to do that, go ahead, have fun. Instead of saying, I'm so sorry, you said we were too extreme on abortion, and that's why we need to, actually give ground to the insanity that you just made
24 weeks is the correct standard. The overwhelming majority of 70% of Americans agree with me that is the correct standard. So let's fight for the correct standard instead of the incorrect standard, which makes you look extreme, and then you get a worse standard on this issue.
By the way, the reason why we got to this point was originally my statement was, if you actually do enforce an unnecessary legal hurdle, then there are going to be victims. That's how legislation works. That's how rules work. There are going to be unnecessary victims on that.
On legal issues, I am conservative. And so what I mean, and I've said that all throughout. So what does that mean? That means I don't believe in activist bullshit justices going, oh yeah, I think money is speech. I think bribes are not bribes. They're just suggestions to politicians. Fuck you. You're an activist piece of shit. And that doesn't make any sense at all for you to redefine bribery as perfectly legal First Amendment rights. Bullshit. It led to corporate rule. Same activist judges that made those decisions in Bellotti and Buckley then turn around in Roe v. Wade and go, oh yeah, it turns out that the Constitution talks about trimesters. The Constitution doesn't talk about trimesters. You just made that up. Okay, so now when you get to crime,
well, one would say that it was activist.
The liberal principle that we're all taught is that better to let one innocent person go free. 99 guilty people go free. That's your pizza analogy. 99 people go free.
One would say
I don't think that's moral.
One would say the Brown v. Board of Education was also activist judges on the other side. I don't care if there are activist judges that are actually progressive, but I do still think that fundamentally the Supreme Court is
Board of Education actually looked at what the Constitution said, and it said equality is not unclear. This document clearly states that we should have equality. So the guys pretending that the Constitution says we should be unequal is a lie. It's not true.
This is another issue that we fundamentally disagree on. I don't believe that there is any sort of strict interpretation or anything like that. I think that people have their own personal convictions and also the ideology of the party that appointed them, and they advance that agenda regardless, and that like the literalist understanding or the strict textualist understanding is a relatively new phenomena that intellectualizes the right-wing framing.
No, when you get into that, you're going to get into Scalia and all those guys lying through their teeth about strict interpretation.
Yeah, they're
lying.
If
they actually did strict interpretation, that would be a different thing. But they don't. They say strict interpretation, and they go, oh, Second Amendment, ignore the whole first half of the sentence, and ignore the part about the militias. I'm just going to make up that it isn't about militias, that everybody's allowed to have a fucking Uzi, right? No, that's not what the Second Amendment says.
Loving was also at a time when like the Supreme Court also once again did something that was relatively unpopular, and Brown v. Board of Education
but they were correct about the Constitution. The people that were passing the laws saying that you couldn't get married other races, they were the ones that were committing an unconstitutional act. They were wrong. So anyways, okay, look, before we go, you're asked about hey, is it, and everybody online is it a right-wing turn or whatever. I want to clarify something that's important. There are three different parts of what we call Republicans or right wing, right? So, and we should have different standards. And I'm curious. One of the reasons I'm bringing it up is I'm curious what you think about this. So, number one, when you talk, the three different layers are Trump in this new MAGA world, people around Trump, and then the voters. Okay, so for the people around Trump have proven in the past that they do not have good intent. Their intent is corporate tax cuts, being vicious to immigrants, not just, hey, stop the border, not just remain in Mexico, but they've shown in different instances that they hate undocumented immigrants, but they also hate documented immigrants. Steve Bannon, Stephen Miller, et cetera, et cetera. So, so the people around him are going to try to lead him in the wrong direction. I think Trump himself is can go in either direction because he's an empty vessel. He just wants to be popular. The people around him push him to do extreme things, and he did that, and he was perfectly happy to do that. I'm not making any excuses for him, okay? He did a whole heap of extreme stuff in his first term because of the Stephen Millers and the Steve Bannons, et cetera, pushing him in that direction. Is there a small percentage chance that Trump could actually go in the right direction if he thought it made him more popular? Okay. And I say, yes, I think there is a small percentage chance that he can actually go in the right direction if he thinks it'll help him, and he doesn't care about ideology at all. He doesn't care about a conservative ideology. He doesn't care about what MAGA ideology is. He will go in a direction that's popular. Okay. Potentially. Okay. Now, but that's both of those things are not as important as the right-wing voters. So what I now see is a different right-wing base. And so I'm curious what you think about this. In 2016, MAGA was Donald Trump is God. Whatever Donald Trump says, even if it's the exact opposite of what I always thought in my life, I'm going to defer to Donald Trump and forget anything I've ever said. Okay. And I don't mean on tariffs and stuff like that. A bunch of the corporate Republicans and corporate media pretended that the Republicans didn't like tariffs, pretended that the Republicans loved free trade, that the Republicans loved war, that the Republican voters loved corporations and corporate power. That's not true at all. Okay. So, but there are a bunch of things that Trump would say that was like corporate tax cuts is not populist. It's not popular. Right-wing voters don't even want it. But Trump said, no, give the richest corporations in the world a tax cut. And MAGA said, yes, the rich win again. Thank God. Woohoo. Right. And that made no sense. So I fought tooth and nail against not just Trump, but MAGA. What I'm seeing now is that there is a genuine portion, not the whole thing, portion of MAGA that is actual right-wing populists. And so what that means is we might disagree with them on social issues, and we fight like hell on those social issues, but on some core economic issues, they actually are anti-war. They actually are anti-corruption. They are these things. I'm not saying Trump is. I'm not saying his advisors are. I'm saying the actual voters are. So I don't know if the number is 25%. I don't know if it's 55%. I don't know what the number is. But I don't think it's lower than 25%. And I think that 25% of the new MAGA, if Trump goes, no, I now say that Israel is great. You should all bow your heads to Israel. We're going to pay for their endless wars. And in fact, we're going to help them start a war in Iran. And you guys are going to have to fight that war in Iran. And you're going to have to pay trillions of dollars to fight that war in Iran. I think at least 25% of his base goes, fuck this. That's not what I signed up for. So I'm curious what your take on that is. Am I crazy in your mind? There is no such thing. MAGA's still blind.
No, I think most Americans don't give a shit, and they operate on vibes alone, and they operate with whatever is in their pocket, and they might not have voted for Donald Trump originally because they were like certain that he was going to. Joyce here. That they were 100% certain that he was going to do mass deportations. Some people probably didn't even consider it. Other people certainly were interested in it. I don't think that every single person voted for 20 million immigrants being forcibly deported from this country by using the military. But that's neither here nor there. I think ultimately, whatever Donald Trump does, his base of support is still going to figure out a way to go along with it just like they did. Trump did a whole bunch of unpopular things in 2016. He will continue to do a whole bunch of unpopular things this time around as well. And people are still going to find a way to reason with it and justify it as a sunk cost fallacy. In their minds, they're like, yeah, we voted for this guy. And I think things are probably going to be better. And you have a massive right-wing media ecosystem that will look to present it as though that is like, look to make it seem like that is the case, that Trump is actually on board with these principles that he claimed he was on board with. And we see this with Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is a hawk. He is not a populist right-winger, and yet you don't see a lot of chirping coming from the MAGA media ecosystem.
I do see it. That's the difference. So I'm looking at right-wing populists, and when I tell them Marco Rubio, Elise Stefanik, Mike Huckabee, and Mike Waltz are Team Israel, Team Miriam, and they're neocons, and Tom Cotton's a neocon piece of shit, they go, yeah, we agree. Okay?
Yeah, but they don't care.
So they might not care now, but if they start a war and they say you pay for it and you fight for it, I think they're going to care.
Hold on one second.
And by the way, as he's closing that, because you think right-wing MAGA, some portion of it, 25% or whatever the number is, right, might agree with us or might do the right thing, doesn't mean that you agree with them on all the wrong things, right? Like a good example is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And this goes to your point more so far, right? Which is Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is cops on Wall Street. And every dollar spent there returns $20 in stolen money from the bankers.
Yeah, and the Republican donors hate it, and Donald Trump is going to fucking nuke it into orbit.
Yeah, and so... And there I'm saying, look, I disagree with MAGA. If MAGA agrees with Trump on that, I disagree. No, you guys are wrong. You're going to let them rob the place blind, and helping Wall Street is not a populist position. So this idea that the government is by definition is wrong is irrational. It depends. What's the government doing? The government does the military. The government does cops. The government does firefighters. The government does teachers. So should we not teach anyone? Should we not have any cops? What is the government doing? And the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is not something that is meant to oppress Elon Musk and is some sort of woke thing. No, it's the thing that says, hey, when Wall Street robs you, we come in and we reverse the robbery. And you know we're right because they have a team of lawyers and their squadron of lawyers concede and pay giant fines because they were robbing you, right?
I think he threw a bone at the Teamsters by picking like a more favorable a Republican that was actually in support of the PRO Act, which puts her ahead of the likes of Mark Kelly, famously. But ultimately, when you look at her AFL-CIO score, she's still scoring at 10%. So I don't think that these people...
Teachers Union wants her. The Teamsters wants her. Almost every union wants her.
I think they're making a calculation that like she's better than a fucking absolute psychopath that they were going to put in place. And I totally understand that. I know, but that's still far worse than a Democrat putting,
would you... If let's say you unilaterally can decide she's the labor secretary under Trump, yes or no, what do you decide?
Yeah, no, I have a decision in this process.
You don't get to pick who it is. You just get to say yes or no to her.
Oh yeah, no, I do say yes to her.
Okay,
over,
I agree.
Yeah, no, you and I are in agreement on that. I'm saying that like it is. I think that it is simply leaning in that direction. It's the same reason why like Josh Hawley presents himself as a populist when he's not. You know what I mean?
No, he's half a populist now. He's a quarter of a populist now. He stopped taking corporate PAC money, and what happened right afterwards? He became anti-war and anti-corruption. Now you could say it's bullshit, but if you vote a certain way, it's not bullshit. Votes are votes. Okay. So now, if you say on the other hand, I could show you 12 things he does that's fraudulent and actually helps the bankers. I agree with you.
Yeah, he comes across great when he's like cutting at like pharmaceutical CEOs or whatever in a congressional hearing. But ultimately,
that's a huge step up.
I just don't think
a squadron of establishment Republicans who were just like corporate robots.
No, I think that these guys are recognizing that there is a messaging gap that the Democratic Party is lost. It's the Tucker Carlson phenomenon. I talked about this back when Tucker Carlson had the most popular news broadcast in television, where I said I warned America and I warned the Democratic Party that like because you are actively undermining left-wing economic policies and actively undermining left-wing economic, like real economic populism, and you're pushing it away, someone's going to make up for the messaging gap. And it's going to be the right wing. It's going to be the likes of Tucker Carlson, who present themselves as falsely in support of these sorts of policies. When push comes to shove, they're not going to do it.
So you don't have to vote for Hawley, and I'm not voting for Hawley. But if Hawley votes with us, or Matt Gaetz votes with us, as toxic as they might be, if they vote with us on, for example, what Gaetz did vote with us on, saying that the president cannot bomb Iran without getting permission from Congress, you take the win, right? You say, all right, okay, I like that Matt Gaetz voted that way, and I like that
ultimately
Hawley
they
voted.
know that they're not going to be disruptive enough. There isn't a big enough coalition in the right that is actively in support of these things.
I just don't want us to reject,
and that's why,
when they say yes. Does that make sense?
I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I'm just very skeptical because I'm already skeptical when the Democrats even do that. So why the fuck would I not be skeptical when the Republicans do it? I think that they're even less decent than the Democratic Party, and I think the Democratic Party is indecent to begin with.
So I agree on all that, and under no circumstances would I naively think, oh my God, I think Hawley and Gaetz are just the most pure people, and so is Trump, and we should vote for them and hope for the best. Cross your fingers, right? And, oh, we should trust them on everything. No, but when they say, I agree with you, I have a revolutionary idea, say yes, okay? So let's see if we can cut the Pentagon. Are they likely to cut the Pentagon? No. But now that they've said that they might cut the Pentagon, when they don't cut the Pentagon, it creates a little bit of pressure for them, right?
I don't think it does. That's my point. I we'll see, but I don't think that they're going to cut it. They're just lying. Because they're better room readers than the Democratic Party is.
But you agree that when I said that, and Elon agreed, and Don Jr. agreed, the reason they agreed is not because of me. They don't give a shit about me. It's because there was thousands and thousands of right-wing populists who said, fuck yeah, right?
Yeah, but ultimately, it's going to be business as usual is my point.
And
the
then,
Republicans,
so then the right-wing populists will see that, hey, it might turn out that Trump is just as full of shit as the Democrats are, because he's a politician.
At this stage, I think it's literally, and it was what I responded to you with as well. It's like that Republicans at least understand that like it's good to lie to win elections, whereas Democrats have completely even dropped that principle where they're like, or that's not even true. They lie about the lamest shit possible. They're like, they're not going to fucking do a $50,000 tax credit for startups. But why the fuck are you lying about that? Yeah. Lie about healthcare instead. If you're going to fucking lie about something good. And the Democrats
totally agree with that.
The Democrats are literally they've given up on lying about good shit that they're not going to follow through on in an effort to win elections because they're playing the role of controlled opposition at this point where I think they're comfortable losing to Trump. They're comfortable fundraising off of Trump's victory. They're comfortable not having to legislate.
So I slightly disagree with that. But it's a degree because what it is in the old days, we just had a uniparty, corporate Republicans and corporate Democrats. They all pretended to have fights, good cop, bad cop. And then corporate media would come in and go, oh my God, they disagree so much. Oh my God, bipartisanship broke out. They've agreed to tax cuts for the rich. Everybody celebrate. Bipartisanship is so good. And corporate Republicans and Democrats would go, yay, bipartisanship. Help the rich, right? So that's the game that was played for almost my whole life. Then Bernie came along and said, no, this is bullshit. All they're doing is helping the rich. That's my wing of the Democratic Party, economic populists. I love that. That is true. That was a first brick through the window of the establishment, right? Rhetorically, metaphorically, politically. And then Trump came along and Trump realized what you're saying, which is, populism works. Look at Bernie, look at this. But they came to it at the same time.
He was already, yeah. I think he was organically there.
Yeah, he was organically
He was an outsider. He's always had like unique opinions, unique positions.
But what he did was he tested all these positions because he would sometimes even in the same appearance or in the same speech would say two things that diverged from one another, were the opposite of one another. And he would see what the crowd cheered more, right? So he realized, oh, these are the populist positions that the right wing likes. And he went in that direction. So, and hence, and we've talked about this before too. The example I always use is a guy in Western Virginia in 2016 election. One of our reporters interviewed him.
Ojeda?
No, it's a rando. He's a guy who was doing actually a strike for higher wages at Waffle House. Okay. He was leading that strike. And he said, look, why are they supporting Trump over Hillary? Because Hillary says all the coal mining jobs are gone and they're never coming back. and Trump tells us that he's going to bring back all the coal mining jobs. Now, we know he's full of shit, but at least he has the decency to lie to us, right? So that goes exactly to your point, and that's right. So when I don't want the politicians to lie at all, but that's all they ever fucking do, right? So for the Democrats, they thought, oh no, Trump's a liar, but our guys are angels. That's so naive. That's so fucking naive. It hurts the brain.
I don't think anybody in this community thinks that the Democrats are.
Not in this community. I'm saying mainstream media.
We are
corporate
the
Democrats.
activist left that is too woke for and tarnishing the good reputation of the Democratic Party.
Yeah,
in your estimation,
probably.
I disagree.
All right, well, and you should tell me what name to call you guys. But so Trump. So, and I would say to the right wing guys, if you think the establishment Democrats are obviously lying, did it ever occur to you that Trump might also be lying? It's the same exact thing I tell to the Democrats. Trump's always lying. Did it ever occur to you that Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden might also be lying?
Yeah.
Did it ever occur to you? I'm not saying to you, I'm saying to like the establishment Democrats, right? Did it ever occur to you that maybe Joe Biden is too old? Maybe he does have cognitive decline. But right wing, I'm asking you the same thing. Did it ever occur to you that maybe Donald Trump also lies? And he lies a lot. And he's trying to give you guys what he thinks you want so he can win the election. But if you hold him accountable after the election, I'm here for it. Okay.
I just don't think they're going to
hold him accountable and you let him lie to you, and all he does is corporate tax cuts again. Well, then then you're just as much a sucker as the establishment Democrats.
They're not going to do that. I don't think they're going to do that. Maybe I'm wrong, but they didn't do it the first time, and they're not going to do it this time either. And I don't even think that there is any sort of real machine in this country as a direct consequence of the labor force and labor unions being gutted out year over year by corporate-backed Democrats and Republicans alike, that there's no mechanism of pushback to begin with. And you can do pussy hat wearing women's marches or whatever, but ultimately it doesn't really change the trajectory of the country. And there is no better demonstration of both uniparty and the inability of either party to actually respond to any sort of public pressure was best demonstrated by the pro-Palestinian movement in this country that was massive. And what the fuck did the Democrats do? They went back, they went to the colleges, and they were like, "You're all Hamas. You love Hamas. You're all backed by Iran." And then they started arresting campus demonstrators. Not only did they arrest them, but they added significant penalties to demonstrating on college campuses, and the uniparty continued. So I don't think that people give a shit. Look at BLM, Black Lives Matter protests happened, massively consequential, supposedly. It happened globally. It was supposed to be truly impactful. The Democrats did what you wanted, which is they had their sister soldier moment. For those of you who don't know, it's they basically said, we are not this. These guys are terrorists. They're too far left. They're too woke. What happened as a consequence of that?
Joe Biden won.
Joe Biden. No, we're talking about the Democratic
Bill
Party.
Clinton did Sister Soldier and he won.
Yeah,
I don't agree with you that I'm doing a Sister Soldier.
But I'm saying
you guys are almost doing it in reverse.
Do you see the Democratic Party? Do you see what I'm saying when I say the Democratic Party said we're determining in the limited time that we have to not necessarily get to the heart of the problem with this groundswell of demonstrations that took place, instead of addressing the root cause of this and saying this is our policy prescription, and that there has to be some real changes made. They said those guys are extreme. We love funding the police. We're going to fund the police extra fucking hard. Okay. And we're going to be the number one funders of police. And that the Republicans don't actually want to fund the police as hard as we want to fund the police. And while Joe Biden won by 42,000 votes over, key states, it ultimately did not change the dynamic in favor of the Democratic Party. They completely dropped that. They completely dropped the police reform. They built 8 Can't Wait as a countermeasure, in the same way that the Republican think tank Heritage Foundation had originally created Obama's ACA as a countermeasure towards socialized medicine. They built up something else. Just like Joe Biden said, "Oh, I'm going to do the public option." which was simply just a countermeasure to Medicare for all, to say we have a solution. It's a better solution, backed by corporate media, and pumped it, even though he had no reason or no interest in genuinely advancing even the public option. The Democrats said we're going to do a can't wait. Okay, it was significantly limited, and then they spent the entire time saying these guys, these radical leftists, these radical BLM protesters, they are not us. They're different than us. Did the public actually look at that and go, wow, the Democrats are so reasonable. They want to fund the police. They are not representative of the abolish the police constituency in the party. No, they didn't. They just saw the Democrats still in the same exact way. Pete Buttigieg had a really good point on this.
So many issues. Okay.
No, it's the same because I'm not conflating issues. I'm conflating the same. I'm explaining the same principle that Democrats, the same trap that Democrats fall into every single time. Pete Buttigieg had actually, ironically, a really solid take on this, even though I don't like him at all and I'm terrified of him. Here's what he said. No matter what we do, whether we want the public option or whether we want Medicare for all, Republicans are going to always call us socialists. So at a certain point, you should just advance your agenda and move on. They're going to call us socialists, whether we're in favor of that or not in favor of that. So just do good policies. That is the first and last time I've ever agreed with Pete Buttigieg.
So let me break it down. So I think there's three wings of the Democratic Party. There's the establishment Democrats or corporate Democrats, same thing. We can call them establishment guys. Okay. Neither one of us agrees with them. Okay. So then I think there is the economically populist wing that Bernie 2016 represented perfectly. That's exactly where Anna and I are, and generally Young Turks are. But Young Turks, TYT as a network is broad and it has all the different types of Democrats. Okay. So then the last wing is what I'm struggling to find a word on.
I mean, Bernie had significant criminal justice reform in his agenda that I don't think you would agree with.
No, it depends on the criminal justice reform we're talking about. It always depends. So and so the last wing is what I would call the extreme left, but you can come up, or identitarian left, whichever word you want to use. Okay. So when you go into elections, my whole lifetime, the Democrats have done the thing that you are talking about, but they've done it largely about economic issues. So the Republican will say, oh, hey, they're going to cut defense. Can you believe they're going to cut defense? They're weak on defense. And then Donnelly in Indiana, McCaskill in Missouri, et cetera, would come out and go, no way, man. They said we're weak on defense, and I'm not a normal dirtbag liberal that hates defense and is going to get you all killed, okay? I'm just like the Republicans, man. I want to spend more on defense. Okay, that is not a moderate position, and that is not a position that agrees with the populist left. That is not a position that is an establishment Democrat saying, I am copying establishment Republicans. That is a loser strategy, total, utter loser strategy. I'm going to be more corporate than you. I'm going to fund the donors better than you. I'm going to be more establishment than you. You and I agree. That's what the Democrats have done our whole lifetime, and that is totally wrong.
I think that's what they do on every single issue that Republicans choose to make their major point. And I think the attitude shift and the territory that they've lost on, the territory that they've voluntarily given up on in terms of social progress, in terms of social issues, is proof of this. That's what I mean.
So, but
Republicans,
those are
always,
economic issues.
Republicans were angry at gay marriage. They were angry at gay people. Gay people were in the crosshairs. Democrats, for one reason or another, saw the writing on the wall and actually pushed for gay marriage. It got normalized. They moved on. They were like, let's get back to the drawing board.
That's exactly what I did.
And then they moved on to trans issues. They tried to attack trans people in numerous different ways.
So now on non-economic issues, on social issues, sometimes we have an intensely popular position and then they walk away from it and it drives me nuts.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they will, because of what I call the extreme left, go to a position that appears to be defund the police. So I don't know what you feel about defund the police, but basically,
I think on principles is the exact same thing that I've said over and over again. There is a multitude of different perspectives on the left in terms of what to do with police. Okay, some people want to abolish it in its entirety. I don't agree with that. But even then, I have normal conversations with anarchists who want to do that and still come at it from a place of respect and understanding.
Yeah,
especially if we're having, okay. it doesn't matter. That's the reason why a lot of people look at you and think you're reactionary in this situation. And you get mad.
So, wait, hold on. So 70 to 80%, in the case of abolished prisons, 98% of the country is reactionary?
No, first of all, it's entirely dependent on what is considered normal. People also thought slavery was good. You know what I mean? It doesn't.
So abolishing prisons.
No, I don't agree with that. But
So
listen,
you don't- so
no, I'm
98%
talking
of
about
the
the
co-
treatment. I'm talking about the treatment and the empathy and understanding that you demonstrate when having these conversations is important, especially
So I
if
have
you're
to empathize
focusing
with
on
abolishing prisons and go, oh, you might be right. That's super interesting.
No.
Maybe we let all the criminals
I
run
already
free.
just described to you that I don't agree with that position, but I understand where people are coming from when they explain that position. And I also understand, most importantly and most consequentially, that those people who say abolish prisons, many of which don't, think that this is a thing that is going to happen tomorrow. I'm not going to fucking immediately run to bully them and vilify them and make them silly or make them feel silly or even turn around. I mean, there's a lot of academic literature on this, Jank, by very...
I know. I don't give a shit. I read the academic literature and it's dumb.
Okay.
You can't academic your way out of, I let all the rapists go. Oh,
Dude,
but it's
that's
okay.
not-
I'm a professor.
Look,
I wrote
listen,
13 books about it.
That's not what this point is. My point is that it's important to understand where people are coming from and how they arrive at these conclusions. If the overarching goal is to
Do you think they do likewise? When they scream Nazi, or do you think they're having a respectful conversation about where the boundaries should lie and where we should draw the lines?
No, but you're also a seasoned media professional that has been in this career for 25 fucking years. So you should understand that there's going to be a lot of noise and you pick and
so
choose
when
your
they
battles.
say Nazi, I should say, "Oh, really? What
Call me a Nazi
professors
too.
agree with you?"
That's
such an interesting intellectual conversation.
They call me a Nazi too, and then they come back and then they listen. And there's a difference between the way I deal with it and the way that you deal with it, because I ultimately see that as relatively inconsequential. There are plenty of people who are rad libs.
All the voters to know that the Democratic Party, the right, and the left, the populist left, the Bernie Sanders movement, etc., does not agree with lunatics who want to abolish prisons. So that is super important for them to understand.
Do you want to this is what I was saying. In terms of identifying those people as silly or crazy, actually just simply brings them to the forefront. And it makes it seem like you are hiding because you're embarrassed by them, when in fact, most of those positions are not even important enough to address. I'll give you an example of something that you understand. There were pro-Palestinian demonstrations that took place outside of the Benjamin Netanyahu conference that he gave to Congress. Kamala Harris's initial statement immediately after that, even though she didn't attend that conference in front of the entirety of Congress, was to say the protesters outside are burning American flags and talking about how they love Hamas. Do you think that it was a smart thing to address?
So it's a great example because the Palestinian cause is just. Establishment Republicans and Democrats are screwing us on that and taking our money to commit a genocide. But when someone burns that American flag, they have done great damage to the cause.
Yeah,
great damage.
Agreed. Do you think that?
Writing Hamas on a statue in Washington is great damage? Stop being stupid. The most extreme person is not necessarily the correct person or the most pure person.
Do you understand that while you and I might have an agreement on that, you do recognize that Kamala Harris recognizing that and addressing it simply makes people think, one, it makes everybody on the left, on the correct position go, oh, she's only hyper-focusing on these extreme examples to vilify the entirety of the protests, which is exactly what she was doing.
I agree.
You and I agree on that. Okay. On the right, they say, oh, that bitch is lying. She loves Hamas. She's just trying to make it seem like...
Are you kidding me?
No, but I know.
No, you're right. You're right. That is one of the right things. I'm laughing at the right. Guys, she loves Israel.
Do you understand?
She'll do anything for Israel.
So, but you understand why I think that media professionals such as yourself or politicians shouldn't just fucking do that because it's unproductive and stupid. The reason why Kamala Harris is doing that is because she does love Israel and she wants to present it as though she loves Israel.
So we both agree that she handled it wrong. So this is a fun exercise. So why don't you say how you would have handled it if you're the candidate, and then I'll say how I would have handled it if I was the candidate.
Oh, I would have immediately come out and been like, I would not have addressed the protest outside of Benjamin Netanyahu's Congress at all. Or if I was going to address it, I would say that it is a fantastic demonstration of the First Amendment in this country, that people have the right and the freedom to protest. And not only that, but also the very fact that this right-wing Donald Trump-backed this far-right Trump of Israel coming into U.S. Congress and addressing the American Congress while simultaneously claiming that the First Amendment principles that student protesters showed were actually somehow foreign actors is completely unacceptable, and that we have to immediately get Israel to follow through on the ceasefire negotiation by denying them further weapons.
You know what every mainstream media outlet would have said after that response?
I don't care.
He didn't address the flag burning. He didn't address Hamas. So that means he's in favor of Hamas.
Yeah.
And he's in favor of burning the flag.
Yeah. I
Okay.
don't care if they were to say that. Then I would turn around and, just like Trump does all the time, I would have been like, fake news. These people are actually in the pocket of Israel. And that's precisely the reason why they keep lying.
And then you're on air. They're going to say, are you okay with burning the flag? Are you okay with writing Hamas?
I think that the First Amendment is there for a reason.
You lost.
Well,
God
no.
damn it. You don't do that, Haas. When you
No,
do
the First
that-
Amendment is there for a reason. The First Amendment is, we are not Israel. We are not China. The First Amendment is the First Amendment for a reason. It is a constitutionally protected act. I do not believe in offering criminal penalties. Do you want to
That
arrest
gets
people for?
that
Do you want
gets-
to arrest people?
No, I don't.
Okay,
so I'm
well
going to
then,
tell you
there you go.
how I'm going to handle it in a second. But that will be perceived as the candidate defending Hamas and burning the American flag, and that's a loss for us. Okay,
Yeah, no, you just deflect. You say this is a ridiculous. People. You think people don't ask me that all the time? You think people don't already, without even asking me? People say that I'm a fucking anti-Semitic, pro-terrorism,
No, I know.
all this
So-
and that.
so
I just go, shut the fuck up. You're pro-Israel. You hate that I am anti-Israel, and that you're viciously going to smear me as an anti-Semite because you have no fucking argument. That's all you need to say.
Okay, so this is what I would have said. Benjamin Netanyahu has led to the deaths of 44,000 innocent Palestinians, 104,000 injured. Almost all of Gaza has been turned into a slaughterhouse. The fact that these people applauded him while they took money from organizations like AIPAC is unconscionable. It is deeply immoral. The overwhelming majority of the people outside protesting them are exactly right. They're protesting $26 billion of American taxpayer money instead of going to paid family leave, instead of going to higher wages, going to better health care. They're taking it out of the hands of the American people and giving it to this war criminal to murder more innocent babies. There's been over 700 babies murdered by the Israeli Defense Forces in the Gaza Strip. If you're asking me about these two knuckleheads that burned a flag and wrote Hamas, fuck them. They're dumb. They're not one of us. And I'm not interested in that kind of counterproductive idiocy. I love this country, and America is going to do better than this. We're going to stop funding genocides, and we're going to stop applauding people because they got bribed and took millions of dollars in those bribes. I condemn the Democrats, and I condemn the Republicans who went to that speech.
Yeah, so all the stuff, with the exception of the recognition that briefly came in that process, is completely inconsequential, because now you've identified that was a real thing, and it's not just like a.
But it was a real thing.
But it doesn't
It's
matter.
on video.
It doesn't
matters
matter
when the whole country sees it.
Yeah.
And CNN's going to put that on tape on a
Yeah.
reel.
I know. You know what's really funny about that entire process? This is what I mean when I say Republicans never give a fuck, and especially so under the Trump regime. There's never a moment where the Republicans are like, oh, these people with like swastikas outside of our fucking rallies don't represent our values at all.
Yeah,
We
and
hate
when he said there are
Nazism.
good people on both sides. How'd that work out for him?
Yeah, he would have won if it wasn't for COVID.
No, I know, but
He won on-
but it was a dumb comment, right?
It doesn't matter.
So
He would have still won.
Because it looked like he was supporting a super extreme
Yeah,
position.
it doesn't matter, because he still would have won, and he also has a super extreme position.
Except
he wants
he
to
lost in
deport
2020 after
I know,
saying
because
that.
of COVID. That's why I said because of COVID. It wasn't because there were very fine people on both sides.
When you appear to be defending or ignoring an extreme position, it does you no good strategically. Just look at.
No, it doesn't matter.
I dismiss.
I completely disagree.
The flag burner in under
Donald Trump literally said
2
stand back and
seconds.
stand by when talking about the Proud Boys.
And
which
he
is a
lost
right-wing.
right after that.
Yeah, he lost not because of that. He lost because of COVID.
Elections are complicated, brother. There's all those factors, and that's part of the factors.
That's crazy.
That's what I'm getting.
He
at.
also won again.
So there's a difference between I'm going to out corporate Republicans, I'm going to out military industrial complex Republicans, and saying no, I don't agree with the most extreme left wing positions of defund.
There's
the
no
police,
reason to mention it.
etc.
Because all you're doing is
it's
no.
okay.
There's no reason to
Perfectly
mention
good-
it.
Perfectly good disagreement on strategy.
The reason why I'm saying there's no reason to mention it is because the Republicans are going here. If you remember, I think in the immediate, like in the beginning of the Biden administration, there was a messaging bill that came out that Democrats voted on, including Ro Khanna. They were like, "We are not a socialist nation." You remember that? When Ro Khanna and a bunch of this is a capitalist nation. This is not a socialist nation whatsoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a messaging bill that a fuck ton of Democrats voted on for no fucking reason. Why did they vote on it? Because they wanted to do what you're saying. They don't agree. They are socialists, first and foremost. That's important, right?
Yeah, that's
but
a little
they
bit
also,
different because I want to introduce a bill. A bill highlights it. That's dumb. That's like doing a bill that's saying,
highlights
hey,
it as
don't
well.
write Hamas on statues.
Messaging highlights it as well.
Why are you highlighting it?
Messaging
No,
highlights
because
it as well.
At that point, there's a 24-hour reel on CNN, MSNBC, and
No,
Fox
you just
News
deflect.
of flag burning.
Expert-
You're not going to deflect your way out of that, Haas. Deflection doesn't work.
Expert PR absolutely is deflecting, or in many instances, not even responding, or in many instances, just waiting out the fucking media cycle to end. When you highlight it yourself, you're basically telling people, more people, oh, this thing does exist, and ooh, I'm actually kind of scared of this thing.
They did do those
But it doesn't
things.
matter.
You have to cut them off
Same
and
shit
say
happened
they're
with the
not
Black.
us.
Same shit happened with the
They're
Black
not
Lives Matter
us.
rallies. Same shit happened with the Black Lives Matter rallies when
And by the way,
liberals.
they did do that on Black Lives Matter, but they didn't do it for the Palestinians.
Wait, no, they did do it for the Black Lives Matter rallies as well. They were like, oh, fry them up like bacon. They would like focus on the socks that people were wearing that had pigs on it. They always do it. It is a formative part of the reactionary media strategy, which is identify something that looks out of place and either massage the narrative to make it seem like this is the entire, the belief structure of the entire fucking movement. Just like with Israel, I'm using Israel because we are completely in agreement on that. Where they will say every single person is an anti-Semite. It's a smear campaign to actually deflect away from the actual normal points, the very popular points that people are actually
But unfortunately,
making.
that's a good analogy too, Haas. We agree on the substance of what Israel is doing is wrong, but when I condemn Hamas and Hezbollah every time, and so you would say that that's probably not a correct strategy. Whereas,
It's not.
Yeah, I think you're totally wrong.
It's not. I think that
first of all, the violence is not the answer. It's
I agree. And I have also openly stated that there were atrocities that took place on October 7 that are totally avoidable, and they were avoidable by not having an apartheid. That people, when you back them into a corner, they're going to and show them that there's no way out of it. They're going to inevitably try and fight their way out of it, and that process is brutal. And that standard of violence is set by the colonial occupation. It's this
say
evolution.
all of that while saying Hamas is wrong to do it, Hezbollah is wrong to do it. And then you don't leave it there. Then you explain, wait, Israel did 40 times what Hamas did.
So that's the thing. Ultimately, my point is that regardless of how many times you have done that, and I've done it as well, it doesn't matter. People still say you love these guys. You're fucking
no.
terrorists.
No. People look. It's impossible to tell what everybody's perception is. Are there some people who call us anti-Semite, blah, 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 no matter what? Of course. Is that a big percentage? It might be a pretty large percentage, right? But are there people who go, no, I get it. I get what Cenk is saying. Yeah, Hamas and Hezbollah shouldn't do terrorism, but wait, if I'm upset about that and they killed 34 kids,
even terrorism is like,
maybe I should be upset that Israel killed 15,000 kids.
Also,
right?
the other point I wanted to make is that there was very extreme sentiment that the Republicans engaged in, outright lie, as a matter of fact. The Haitians are eating cats and dogs narrative that came out of Springfield, Ohio. It was a very, very big thing that led to mass fake bombing threats that were made towards Springfield, Ohio.
Right, but
And
I mean that's a situation again where I would fight Trump and rip his face off on that. Are you saying we should just deflect from that?
No, my point is Donald Trump successfully was like, now he either didn't talk about it at all, or in instances
I would
where
have
he
mocked
was.
him mercilessly.
I know, but you don't understand. The media did cover it nonstop. The media said, you did this, and it did not fucking matter. That level of shamelessness is what is necessary.
Now we're talking about
at
a
a time,
huge election.
That level of shamelessness is necessary at a time when there is complete political polarization. And what is at the root of my argument against caving and capitulating to right-wing framing, regardless of whether you
But
even
keep
agree
saying
with the
caving and
position.
capitulating when it isn't. I'm agreeing to my own position and a position
Yeah,
that,
you and
a
I-
great majority
you
of
and I
Americans
are-
agree more with.
Yeah.
Well, how is it
You and I are at
capitulating
odds
to
with
agree
this.
with 70% of Americans?
Because I believe,
Especially when you actually genuinely believe it.
because I believe that, like, on the issue of immigration. Okay, well, let's talk about that.
All right, last thing, and then you got to tell me what to call
the
you, and then we got to go
incredibly-
eat turkey.
The incredibly right-wing bill that was presented on October 5, 2023 by the Democratic Party. Do you agree with that bill? The
I don't-
border bill?
Remind me.
The border bill that Joe Biden put forward and said was...
in 2023,
Yeah,
the, like
2023.
the Trump
yeah,
bill.
yeah, he was like
basically.
the Trump border bill.
So there's parts that I agree with and parts I don't agree with. I these days I agree with remain in Mexico. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
And,
So-
and why is that?
Because look, they're saying, "Hey, I've got an asylum case. I don't want to do the right wing position of I don't care about it. Your asylum case. Get the fuck out of here. I'm not letting anyone in. That's illegal under international law, and it's not the moral right position." But that doesn't mean that we have to allow them into the country and then release them into the country and then hope that they come back. Now, most of them do. Over 80% of people do come back for their hearings. So it's overhyped as to how much catch and release is a problem. But a lot don't, right? So if they say, but there's no reason not to say, okay,
It's more than that. I think it's 90.
Hold on, stay in Mexico, okay? Stay in Mexico, but we're going to have your asylum here. And we're going to have it as quickly as we can. And I would order so many more judges to expedite those hearings
So
quicker.
question for you here is, do you think that undocumented immigrants constitute a grave national security threat to America?
No, I think that the crime from undocumented immigrants is overhyped. But is there crime? Yeah, of course there's crime because they're human beings, right?
Yeah.
And so is it a national security threat? No, it's a threat to have people actually do the manual labor that we need in this country. So it's way overhyped. At the same time, do I think that crossing the border should be illegal? Yes. Do I think that we should have open borders where it's decriminalized? No, I do not believe it should be decriminalized.
But I think you and I would probably agree on this, that if the process was infinitely faster for voluntary migration into this country, as was the case historically in the United States of America, that most people would not actually illegally cross the border.
It would certainly help. We should have a much better voluntary immigration
I mean, that's
system.
100%. Okay, so that we're in agreement there. So
Yeah.
I think that the problem here with the right-wing framing on this right-wing border bill was that it literally featured funding for the border wall and billions of dollars in new apprehension methods and technology. Some of that is actually valid in terms of regular points of entry is where drugs are actually coming into the country from, and there needs to be some mechanism of apprehension and surveillance in that regard. And some of that was actually technological improvements that would do that. I'm fully in favor of that. There was a very tiny sliver of funding for additional judges for processing. Also, I'm in favor of that. That expedites the process, that expedites the process. It makes it faster. It's more ethical. It reduces the number of illegal crossings in general.
Great. Yep. Agreed.
They did not actually, they didn't actually put a bill that just had that in it, which would have addressed a lot of these problems. They actually went with a completely right-wing bill that was, funding the border wall, funding the muscular militant border security, that ultimately made everyone look at the Democratic Party and go, oh, you guys are fucking idiots. You lied for 8 years saying that the border wall was racist. You want to build it now. What the fuck happened?
I totally
And
agree.
not a single person actually truly believed that Kamala Harris was going to literally be the real muscular border policy person. They voted for Donald Trump. This is a perfect demonstration of exactly what I'm angry about, with respect to both crime and respect to immigration and every other issue that the Democrats cave and capitulate the right-wing framing on. It's unsuccessful, it's bad politics, and it's bad policy. If the solution to crime, which neither of us want more crime. I don't want more crime. I think it's fucking, obviously it's not good. Crime is a perfect example that society is collapsing, right? In a society that is perfect, where all of your needs are met, there's not going to be fucking crimes, right? Unless there's like, there are certain things that the current medical science cannot actually rehabilitate, like crimes born out of antisocial personality disorder, and there's going to be like crimes of passion and whatnot. I agree.
Yeah, it'd be less crime, of course.
Yeah. There's going to be things like that, but the broad majority of things that we look at as crime is a direct circumstance of your material conditions. You're doing it because you have no educational attainment, no job opportunities. You see people having fucking money, and you're like, I want it. I need to, I need to pay for shit. Sometimes it's dumb shit because you want to pay for a PlayStation 5. Other instances is for it's to pay rent, right? So in that regard, I think the best, most effective method of solving crime is to address and tackle the root causes in which crime happens. And it's not even just like, making it so that there is more upward social mobility, making it so that people have educational attainment. It's also even fun. Recreation even plays a role in this, like the Kia Boys and many of these other instances. Like crime in Chicago is a perfect example of this. Like youth crime in Chicago is a perfect example of this. After school programs and rec leagues have genuinely improved the youth crime statistic. These are programs that we have implemented time and time again all around the country, and they have been successful.
Can I just go? I want to use your immigration example because I think it's actually a really good example. Yeah. So if capitulating to the Republicans is saying, oh yeah, you're right, we should build a wall. The wall doesn't work. We said the wall doesn't work for 8 years. If you turn around now and say that it does work, that means you're a fucking liar, right? So no, I don't think the wall works. I'm not in favor of the wall. That doesn't mean that I'm in favor of open borders. It means I want to enforce the law. I agree with remaining in Mexico, etc. But saying, hey, you know what? I happen to agree with remaining in Mexico is not capitulating because that's my actual opinion, right? And then if you go,
that's your actual opinion.
Yeah. And so if you and then if you go and then there's folks on the left, let's say that this didn't really happen, right? It didn't get a lot of attention. But if it had gotten a lot of attention, the idea that some on the left have of decriminalizing border crossings, I would say, no, I draw the line there. Okay. And that's not capitulation. That's just being sensible, correct. Again, my actual position, and making a distinction for they're the extremists, we're not the extremists, right? So you would say, well, if somebody made a big deal out of decriminalizing the border, even if I don't agree with it, I'm going to deflect from that. And I'm not, because that's capitulating to Republicans.
But I also don't even
position that I actually agree with.
I also don't even disagree with the decriminalization of the border. You'll say people are immediately going to react to that and say you're wrong. But I think it's important to create a media ecosystem and also have a designated, consistent faucet of propaganda or messaging, right? That also humanizes migrants and helps Americans come to the conclusions that they already have arrived at, despite the reactionary media ecosystem.
Say, hey, listen, brother, I can't decriminalize the border crossings. Otherwise, we'll have 3 billion people in America by the end of the week. But that doesn't mean that the guy coming into the country is a bad guy. The overwhelming majority of the immigrants are trying to feed their kids because they're really good parents.
For the record, that's not true. That's not like the border walls existing is not the real apprehensions is not the real hurdle. I'm sure that it would actually increase, for sure, that migration would actually increase. But once again, the real reasons as to why people are migrating into the United States of America is because we fucked their countries up. Like Venezuelans are the greatest example.
They are.
Donald Trump deliberately ruined the Venezuelan economy. He wanted the Venezuelan economy to scream with his sanctions regime. Donald Trump also added temporary protective status that he time and time again actually reinstituted, even on his way out, for the Venezuelan migrants. Why? Because there was a political reason for why he was doing that. He was like, it's great. We're going to do a Cuba style situation, but for Venezuela, we're going to have a constant, a massive population
I know,
of
but
people
that doesn't mean you should
in the
decriminalize
diaspora.
the border.
No, my point is that's the reason why Venezuelans came to America. Why the fuck would you want to leave your beautiful country that you live in if there wasn't an unimaginable amount of instability?
I know, but America is richer than the rest of the world, so normal laws of markets and physics would mean that a ton of people would then migrate to America if you decriminalize border crossings.
No, that's not how this
You're
would work.
saying a poor person in Bangladesh would go, "Oh, I don't need to go to America."
No,
big
I'm
deal.
saying that the real salute. First of all, there's plenty of fucking people who would not. Why the fuck would
Of
people want
course,
to move?
not the whole world would
No,
go, but
I know.
a giant number would
I
come.
know, that's my point. We always have this. We have this tendency to believe that like this is the number one nation on the planet and everyone wants to fucking come here. No, most people just want to live in
We
the.
kind of did, Haas.
Yeah, I know, but most people want to fucking live in their homes. Like most people want to live in their homes. Most people want to live in their own culture. It's the instability that causes them to fucking migrate here. And regardless, it doesn't even matter if there are, I'm not advocating for 1 billion Americans. I'm not Matty Iglesias. But the reality of the matter is that if you look at the actual patterns of migration, if you look at the actual data in terms of, Yeah, we're finishing soon. If you look at the actual data, undocumented migrants don't actually contribute to the crime rate in a statistically significant fashion. They actually are responsible for significantly less crime per capita than natural-born U.S. citizens.
I'm not saying that we should have laws on the border because I'm worried that the immigrants are the boogeyman. I'm saying we should have laws about it because you have to have a border. And there's no country in the world that doesn't have a border and that says, oh, yeah, just come in whenever the hell you like. That's not a thing that exists. So, and again, it's a perfect illustration of the difference in strategy that we have, right? And that is why, Haas, I have to make a distinction. It's a perfect thing to end on where I stand as opposed to where defund the police stands or, trans surgery and jail stands or decolonizing the border stands.
People, by the way, are talking about the European Union. There's like plenty of countries in the European Union that are poorer than other nations, and yet they have free travel, unrestricted travel in this.
That is a wildly different circumstance.
Why?
If the European Union and Germany said, "Hey, we're opening up our borders to Turkey," 15% of Turkey would be in Germany in a matter of months.
I don't agree with that.
Okay,
I think that if
it's not Turkey, if they open the border to Syria, oh my God, 55% of Syria would be in Germany.
You're describing two countries that are in the throes of European and American-backed instability that has definitely created,
brother. If you Luxembourg,
a situation of
you're
mass
making
displacement.
$7 less in Luxembourg than you are in Germany, you might not move, right? But if you're incredibly poor situation, you're going to move to richer countries. That's the most obvious thing in the world.
That's why my position is to actually have a more ethical and sustainable long-term solution to the way that we deal with these other countries, so that they have no reason to want to fucking come. And if they do want to come, that the wages and the living conditions are so adjusted that like it's a voluntary migration that doesn't offend a single person and their sensibilities.
Okay, so again, a good example of how we disagree on this and how we would handle it differently. God bless. And I will also say, by the way, you see how Haas and I have agreed and disagreed for hours here, right? But the reason why we're not mad at each other and the reason why things aren't soap opera is because neither one of us questioned each other's intent. So can I ask, I know that it's like,
what?
Like when people on the left disagree, can we just call it a disagreement instead of saying somebody's a grifter, somebody's a Nazi, somebody's this, somebody's that, they have bad intent, I know it, they live in Beverly Hills, they drive a Jaguar, blah, 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 right?
You're never going to be able to
say, hey, we disagree, God
You're
bless.
never going to be able to stop people from doing that. They do it to me all the fucking time. It doesn't matter.
All right, okay,
what
so
matters
but you know
is
who has good intent and who has bad intent.
No, what matters is the way you deal with it. That's what matters. If you highlight it, if you focus on it, if you constantly harp on it, then more and more people are going to yell at you over it. That's it.
Okay,
people,
I don't mind. A
lot of people
and then
are
I'm going to yell at them and then they're going to cry.
No,
so that's the
a lot
pattern.
of people are lost. A lot of people are alienated. They're looking for a sense of community and a sense of purpose. So when you become the guy that they're going to yell at that is responsive to it, and I know this from my own personal career, I've done this mistake. I've made this mistake time and time again, and I still sometimes contribute to it.
I'm not doing it to randos. I'm doing it to the host who have bad intent, say, oh yeah, they're not pure, they're doing it for money. We're brothers and sisters. Hey, by the way, all the guys who said we're going to turn MAGA, and we're going to take money. Where the fuck is it?
I mean,
Where's the money? Where's MAGA? Where is it? What
like
happened?
I think the appropriate thing
Okay,
for
so you were full of shit.
I think
right?
the
All of you?
appropriate thing for example, Sam to do in the future, other than like having a direct conversation with you guys, whether on camera or off camera, would be not to even respond to the fact that you called him a grifter. You know what I mean? In this conversation.
And no, here's what he'll do instead. And now that we're saying it, it changes tactic. But if we hadn't said anything, he would have said, I can't believe Cenk said this about me. Cenk is such a bad guy. Cenk is a right winger. Cenk is a right winger. He's doing it for money. Cenk's a right winger. I'm pure. I'm the purest guy on the left. Oh my God, we have to agree with every single extreme position because they're not extreme. They're the most America agrees with what only 2% of the country actually agrees with. Cenk is a bad guy. Cenk's a grifter. Cenk's a Nazi. Okay, all right.
I don't think that I don't think that they demonstrate an unpopular idea, and neither do I. And like if my position was so unsustainable and so unpopular, I don't think I'd be the largest content creator on the North American continent for leftist positions. Like.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is definitely a lot of people who understand where I'm coming from.
All right,
and
I'm not going to get into a network size here.
What?
All right, last thing. What do you want me to call you guys?
I don't know. You can do whatever. You can
I mean,
say whatever you want.
identitarian left is so clunky.
What?
Extreme left seems like an insult. How about max left? I don't know. You tell me. What do you want to? Because we disagree on these things, right? So I gotta pee.
I gotta pee. You can come up with it.
All right, fuck it. We're not gonna come up with anything.
Okay. Well,
max left. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I don't think there is any need to distinguish.
There is because we don't agree.
I don't think there's any need to do that.
I disagree with defund the police. I need to call them something. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm trying to say, tell me a respectful thing to call you. Max left? I don't know. But I disagree, and I'm allowed to disagree.
No, you are.
And by the way, again, I keep emphasizing the overwhelming majority of left-wing voters agree with me. So since that is true, I have to say you are not the moderate left. You are the not moderate left.
Okay, you can call people socialists if you want. I think that's
different. That's economic. But anyway, I'm also not a socialist, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
All right, guys, listen, happy Thanksgiving. Happy Cenksgiving. Thank you for doing this. This is fun. I like having this conversation. We all like it. I appreciate everybody who watched. And now, we all get along when we go to, I don't agree with Joy Reid, okay? Don't say, oh, don't invite people to Thanksgiving if you don't agree with them. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're all fucking Americans. Let's all get along. And let's agree to disagree without hating each other and calling each other stupid names. And so it is what it is. Let's go eat turkey and let's be a country.
All right, everybody. I love you all. I'll be back tomorrow, and I have to go pee really bad.
Young Turks.
That's all for today. Thank you, Cenk, for coming on. Thank you for participating in Cenksgiving. All right, peace, everybody.